So before we get into the presentations, I first want to publicly apologize to Ty because I realized later in the game that I think you were probably expecting to present last time we met, and due to some miscommunication or misunderstanding on my part, I assumed this was going to happen in smaller groups. So my apologies to you because I can only imagine you're ready to present and we completely kind of ignored it. And even when you discussed it, it didn't dawn on me that that was the intent. So my apologies sincerely to you. Glad we could make some adjustment to the schedule and to the program so you'll have you and your colleagues hopefully adequate time to present your ideas, your plans, and gather input and commentary from your colleagues, and hopefully eventually work together with some folks where there are areas of intersection. Thank you, Ty. But before you start, you're the first one on the panel today. I just wanted to give us, a bit of a context, a perspective in terms of where this fits and why these plans of action and why our interest in engaging you, inspiring you to think about translating IFS into your work. It so happens that this is the 10th anniversary of the foundation. Even though the foundation, was incorporated in 2000, it sat dormant, and this was before my time with the foundation. It stayed dormant for 13 years. There was $5,000 that was gathered early on that sat in some bank collecting hardly anything, that the foundation got as its capital back in 2013 of August. And I was fortunate enough to help start the foundation, populate its board, worked as an executive advisor early on, and then, kind of was pulled to the front kicking and screaming. And 10 years in, we've done, for the small foundation we've done quite a few, hopefully valuable contributions to emotional, relational, and societal healing, well-being, and resilience. And from the initial moment of its launch, the foundation saw the value of taking IFS beyond psychotherapy. There was value in deepening its presence within psychotherapy and helping examine evidence and hopefully gather meaningful empirical evidence around the efficacy of IFS, which is why we funded 4 major research studies. The latest one ongoing at the Cambridge Health Alliance, which is a Harvard affiliated institution. But we saw that the idea of IFS, the paradigm, beyond the psychological and clinical protocol, the idea of parts, the idea of the presence of self, the ability of having access to why the parts exist and what it would take to get the extreme parts to loosen up their grip on us and allow a little bit of self-energy to channel in, and transforming the parts energy, if you wish, from extreme control to integrated talent within each of our systems. And we saw that as greatly valuable in every setting, professional, be it, or just basic interactions among people, within the household, in the workplace, on the playground, in the courtroom, you name it. And we have become, since that moment, in our minds, an organization that incubates, stimulates, inspires, supports the development of ideas, projects, and initiatives in spaces where IFS could be of value. And we envision even a universe of IFS applications. We have a couple tables, and mental health was in one little corner, and there were so many cells that could be future homes of IFS. And we started to populate them one at a time, and we're still hardly anywhere on the map because there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of spaces to be filled. And our philosophy was never to impose IFS or proselytize or hold the banner of IFS, IFS, IFS. It was more, we wanted to make an offering to the extent we can, to help the world heal itself, right? We could never arrogantly assume that we could heal the world or we can change the world, right? All we believed in that each person has the capacity to change himself, herself, or themselves. And by doing that, the lens changes, the view of the world changes, the view of their family members and colleagues and others in the world shifts, right? The ability to access compassion and curiosity changes the dynamics in any interaction, whether it's micro interaction, at the local level, or macro at the global level, between groups and factions and neighbors and nations and so on. And that's really what the foundation has been trying to do. And it's very, very fitting that this program is, approaching its climax of its first phase or second phase. I say that because you as a group are going to continue and do great things in the future in phase 3 and phase 4 and phase 5. It's very fitting that it's happening during its 10th anniversary as one of the, major but modest contributions we're making toward our vision of bringing this offering to the world. And I know, having spoken to a couple of you and having read and watched some of your presentations or the things you shared, that each of you is, I hate to say carrying a torch, but you're actually offering yourself, to the world as a way to assist and support and inspire and build bridges and connect people together and communities together. And that's what it's going to take. I believe in the power of one, which I'm sure each of you does. And, I think the effort that each of you makes is keeping the world in balance. I've long learned that governments aren't what keep the world afloat, not even corporations, right? It's individuals that make change possible, and people and organizations that are mission focused, that follow good causes. And someone mentioned inner goodness. There's also a parallel to inner goodness, Zenat, and that's the outer goodness that kind of reflects inner goodness. And that's, I think, what you guys are making possible through your work. And I wish you the best as you proceed. And with that, I just want to open it up, and let's let the games begin, so to speak, right? Let's hear from you and see what you're cooking in your laboratories. And I'm proud of every one of you, whether you're going to present or not, because I know you're going to take something with you into that next segment of your contributions. Thank you. And Ty, you have the floor.
Excellent. Thank you, Tufik, and everybody for being here. I appreciate you all. 20 minutes is a short period of time, so I'm gonna jump right on into it. Hopefully I can share. Yes. So here is the map. Here's where we're gonna start. And this is my idea. This is year 1, or the end of this year. And my goal is to heal the world. I believe I can do so. Starting with Black folks. These are the people that I know. These are the people that represent my internal family. And these are the people that are connected to me the most. And I believe if I can heal them and show healing to them and bring healing to them, that the rest of the world will follow suit. And so my goal by doing that is to first share and help people realize that they have parts. A part awareness first is the first step. Self-awareness, and then a relationship with their good self-to-part relationship, which is the theme of IFS therapy in general. So my 3 projects that I'm working on that I plan to have completed this year. Number 1 is the Well Dressed Academy. The Well Dressed Academy is an image development coaching program for young men and boys that I will put towards to public schools. The reason why this is the first one is because this will fund all my other projects. The New York City Department of Education has an $11 billion budget. It's the most funded department in the city, and it's the most funded school district in the whole nation. So success in New York City. Get some background noise.
Could we please mute if you're not muted?
All right, thank you. Yeah, success in New York City schools will lend success to all schools, right? So the plan is to have the World Justice Academy going into public schools. I'm already successful in that. I'm already having conversations with some school districts. And from what everyone who's seen what I have, they're saying it's the best program they've ever seen, never seen anything like it. The future of the World Justice Academy is also a game. So I do plan on having a simulation game, which I'll start developing in 2024, which does include some IFS healing, right? It's basically a simulation. If Black people were actually healed, how would they start interacting in the world of today? One thing they will want is they will want their own communities, because they'll realize that the communities that they exist in are harmful in many ways. And so they will start creating their own communities, and the game will allow the player to now be the first to create the first Black self-sustainable community. And it'll be fun, and it'll be taught in schools as well. So that's the World Justice Academy. I'm going to go into more detail about that in a second. The other thing that branched off of World Justice Academy is a kid's book, a children's book. So I was at a fair and I met with a person who writes children's books. We had a meeting. Came out of that meeting, she said, well, I would love for you to write a children's book. And so the children is going to be a series, and it's going to be the adventures of Tyron and his parts. And it will basically be my childhood stories. And it's going to be a choose your own adventure. So in the book, Tyron represents self. His parts represents his parts. And then I'll tell childhood stories that I went through and all of my flavor. And you will get a chance to see him in my video. And I'm gonna explain who he is. You get the chance to see Tyron. He'll have a story where he goes through a situation, he comes out of it, the story ends. But then the reader gets to say, this is how the story ended for Tyron and his parts. But could it have ended differently? And then a reader reads the story again. But this time there's some choices that can be made in these parts area, these decision areas. And this will represent my different parts. And based on what the reader chooses, a different ending will happen. Right. And this is going to be for, elementary school kids. And the idea is to have their parents also read it with them and have little discussions with them. Once I had that meeting, I had about, and maybe a week after that meeting, my kid parts created like 15 stories. We can tell a story about this, that time we went this, when this happened, when that happened. So that's going to be very exciting. But the one that I'm more excited about, even though these are great projects, is the self-led video course that I want to create. Just like Tufik mentioned, because I've been unburdened by the model, because I'm very well versed in the model, because I use it every single day and I coach men in it, I live a different life now. I'm more productive than I was before because I check in with my young parts before I sit down and work, right? I know how to unblend when I have parts that blend when I'm being a parent, and I unblend. And I want to create a video course that kind of shows in very compelling ways and very compelling visuals about how that will look in real life, and then give the participants ways of how they can do it themselves. All right, so that's the basic overview. Now we're going to get into some of the more exciting, more visually compelling parts of this workshop, of this presentation. So let me share now the video that you all have seen. It was sent out, and that is of the. Let me make sure that you can see the audio as well, of the World Justice Academy workshop. So you all can see the screen here. This is the World Justice Academy. This is the intro video. This is the video that the schools will see to introduce them, what I sent out to everyone. So I'll play it here. And as I play it, I'm going to pause it just to connect the dots to all those projects I just made. I think that a lot of kids today are trying to become something they're not. So I should be like them, I should speak like them, I should think like them, to be something, because they think that person is something. But their true power is within themselves. So my belief that today's children are trying to be something that they are not, from social media, from their peers, from whatever they see out in the world, and those create parts. Those create parts that have extreme roles, and that takes them out of self. When you have a part that says, I want to be like them so I can be included by them, that part is operating out of a fear of not being included. So it tries to be something that they're not. And if a kid blends with that part for too long, they'll start staring down a path that's not truly confident, calm, creative, right? They won't have those self qualities. This training is helping them identify their true power within themselves. Start helping them see the self by having those parts, kind of by having them just recognize that they have parts.
Keep on moving on.
Before I can explain what the Well Dressed Academy is, I have to first tell my story. My name is Ty Kuttner. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, but before I was born, my father was killed. I never got a chance to meet him. And my mom.
So this is Tyron right here. As you can see, he's just a clown. He likes playing around. He likes joking around.
Instilled to me that I was important, special. I was a gold.
This is him, right? So this is the kid that I'm talking about. And this is a family video. It's just him. I have a whole video, and I'm able to see my parts now, and I'm able to see how I would separate and do certain things. So one of the things that I am going to have in that book is a great illustrator that's going to take this source material and make it real for my kid parts to build that out, so that it's truly authentic to me.
Golden child of the family, but when I was 15, she passed away. I didn't have people to guide me through that process.
And so when my mom passed away, I was 15. So the Well Dressed Academy is for those kids, right? I was talented, skilled, but nobody could see me, and I didn't know how to communicate about myself either. So that's what the Well Dressed Academy is for. The kids book is for that little Tyron that was dancing and things like that. And I know I'm already like 10 minutes in, right? Okay. So here's how the Well Dressed Academy looks. The kids go through a training. They'll be with me for 90 minutes. We have a series of discussions each week, and then they'll get access. Them and their parents will get access to the inside of the Well Dressed Academy, which is this. So after the 90-minute in the school, their parents will get access to a video, and the video will go through what they learned and then help reinforce that training. So I'll just give you like a good 10 seconds of how that looks.
Welcome to week 2. During this week, your student took a little test where it shows them what their natural talents and skills are. Each student answered differently in each test, so they all have their own unique assessment. I want to take science, behavioral science, to actually identify what the actual gift is that a student has. I want to use the language that an assessment behavioral company would use to identify a gift. I want to use the questionnaire that the student plus the parent can use. I want to use something that is, if they take the test 3-4 years from now, it's the same thing.
So the Well Dressed Academy focuses on the students, focuses on the students' parents, right? And focuses on the teachers that are interacting with the parents. They all are going to gain a sense of IFS and show how to be more self-led. The children books works on the children and their parents as well. And the self-led life course works on everyone else. That includes me and my parents, my family, my girlfriend, my son, any employees I work with, my staff, anyone. It's for everyone, right? The self-led life. And it's for people who already have had some IFS therapy, so they're already part aware. And then they can use these now. How do you do a part mapping? How would that feel internally? How would it look, right? How to do a fire drill? How would that feel? How would it help you, right? How to unblend, how to purposely blend. That's what the self-led life is all about. And lastly, I'll just discuss some of the needs that I have. The Well Dressed Academy is funded by the schools. However, the schools reimburse me. So the Well Dressed Academy is going to be priced at $14,000 for the year. It's 2 levels, right? Each level is 6 weeks plus a trip. My capacity right now is 5 schools, and then Well Dressed Academy does need operating budget. So that's what I'm fundraising for, an operating budget. because the school's reimbursed. The book idea is fully prepared, funded, because we have a publisher who's just getting my stories. And the self-led life is also needs a production budget to be produced. If I had no help, if no one came to me and said, hey, Ty, I can help you out, then the Well Dressed Academy will get sold to organizations, right? So Jack and Jill, I'm in talks with a Boy Scout organizations that will pay up front. And the self-led workshop will be pre-sold, right? So I'll create an intro and I'll pre-sell that first to the guys who are already serviced, who are like, Todd, they want to get on my calendar to have one-on-one sessions with me, but obviously I have capacity, so I'm leaving them with this training and this program. So I'll leave it at that for now, because I do want feedback, I do want questions, and thank you for listening.
Sophie, you're muted.
Thank you. I was saying thank you, Ty, for sharing your vision and showing us or giving us a taste of what's possible. Certainly very inspiring and very exciting to see that you've made a lot of work to get to this point. Certainly this is your time to help Ty think about issues that he may not have addressed and share with them some of your responses and reactions. Tracy, I saw your hand. I don't know if you're planning to share something.
Oh, I was clapping a round of applause for Ty. That was amazing. And sorry, I'm off camera right now. I'm in a hotel room, so the Wi-Fi has been a little bit off, but yeah, just initial impressions is like, wow, Ty, I think that was incredible what you built out. It's I'm actually really more curious about like your process of building out the curriculum, what that was like for you, if you worked with any IFS consultants, if you yeah, just your process of building that out, because I'll be doing some curriculum development too and have been thinking about that for myself.
Yes. So I built out the Well Dressed Academy first based on my image coaching platform, right? So I've been coaching men on the image for the past, 8 years now. And I basically disseminated that into what my younger parts have wanted, right? Now that I've become unburdened, as you can see, it's my whole timeline of my life. That children book is when I was a kid, the Well Dressed Academy is when I was a teenager, the self-led life is now as an adult, right? So I'm letting my whole life out when that. And the training is basically the step-by-step process that I always use in every training that I have. And so I identify what's the goal here, what's my end goal. And the first goal for the Well Dressed Academy is I use the same thing as when I coach a man. I can't teach a man how to dress well if he don't know who he is or where he's going. So that's the first step of any type of training. I have to get him to know who he is. So level 1 is, who am I? Level 2 would be, how do I be myself? Now do I know who I am? How do I be me? So I'm not trying to be someone else. And then I just go and I just go from levels from that point. And I'm very well versed in IFS because I was unburdened. First I was, the model healed me and I was unburdened by Dick Schwartz. So I had a very strong grasp of the model before learning it. And then I took level 1 twice, and then I took level 2, and then I'm PAing a lot. So I'm real versed on a model. I didn't need a consultant, or even think of having a consultant help me with the Well Dressed Academy. But with the self-led life, that is something that I will have someone on the IFS staff to fix. I'm going to have some help in that regard, because it's much more of a IFS product than the Well Dressed Academy is.
Got it. So cool. It's nice to hear about yeah, you taking other like levels of the IFS training and how that supported you in all of this. Thanks for sharing and sending my best wishes.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Anna.
Wow, Ty, this is incredible. When you said, oh, I want to heal the world, I'm like, oh, yeah, we all want to heal the world. But I'm seeing how many steps you're taking. I was so impressed by your diagram of how you were taking it to all your products and connecting them with IFS. I am thoroughly impressed. I love your videos and how you are representing your life and sharing that, because I think that's what speaks to people. It's not concepts, but actually your true stuff. And I think it's amazing. Kind of like in the same lines as Tracy. I think, first of all, you have immense creativity. And I think that's such a product of self. And at the same time, I think that your project is so huge that I'm wondering if you are going to have people to support you through that, because I mean, I really want to see all these elements being taken into the world, but I think it's probably a lot for only one person. So I'm just thinking about that, just curious, but total congratulations, because you're a true testament of how diversity can be turned into something so beautiful and so creative to the world. So
Yes.
blessings.
Thank you for that. So when I first came to the fellowship, my goal was to build a team to create content because I wanted to give IFS to Black folks, and Black folks need to be sexy for Black folks to even want to take a look at it, right? It has to be authentic. It has to be straight up. And so the person who is helping me with my content is my friend, and he's an Emmy award-winning content producer, right? We were friends before he got the Emmy. So he helped me with bringing my vision to life. And so and that's how I was able to create this, you know. And because we're good friends and because he knows my vision, he knows how to put my vision in a place like this where it looks good in that way. And my goal was I have this analogy that in order for me to pass the ball, I have to dribble the ball down the court, down half court first. So that's why the projects, yes, I am going to need help. Yes, I am going to need support. I do have all of y'all in these boxes. There's a place for you in one of those in those boxes on that map for all of you, whether you choose to jump in or not. I'm going to get y'all involved because it's going to be self-led people that's going to heal the world, right? And so yes, I will have people. Yes, I want to bring the projects to a place where you can fit right on in. Like Ty, like you don't have to build a car. I'll make the car. I'll make the seats. I'll have it all. You just got to start driving it once the vehicle is built. So that's why I'm building it. I'm putting it into this way. I'm going to have it all structured out, and I have the plan all laid out for years to come. There's movies, and my whole idea is that there were things that make us harm each other. There's content. There's music. There's movies. There's books that make us not like each other. There's games, right? I look the number one genre of video games right now is shooters, first person shooters. And we wonder why we have all these mass shootings in our country. That has to have something to do with it. And I'm a gamer, right? We're not making enough games that teach us how to build and create. So I'm not going to shame and shun what's out there, just like we wouldn't shame and shun our parts. What I am going to do is create an alternative and then invite us to the alternative. And that's what I'm doing with these projects.
Thank you, Ty. I know Mona has her hand raised. Let me just say, it's very good to have an ambitious vision, right? There's enough quotes out there about visions, without plans are dreams, and plans without visions are a dying breed, right? So it's good that you're working on both, and remember small victories, right? Remember to kind of stretch as far as you can, but keep your eye as close as you can while your mind looks at the horizon. So very good. Mona?
Hi, thanks so much for sharing that visual of your whole concept, and it's so impressive how much you've already created. I wanted to speak specifically to the topic of funding and getting some more stakeholders involved in funding your project. I think last year I was awarded a $200,000 grant from the South Carolina Department of Education. And one of my strategies for that was to collect outcomes for my coursework and be able to present to them the actual outcomes. And so when I had presented it enough times without their funding and started to show outcome shifts in school discipline, shifts in teacher attrition, just concretes that are my funders' pain points, and being able to have measurable outcomes through the vehicle of my work and have principals, affirm that through testimony, but also have something quantifiable, like quantifiable data. I'm curious if you've thought around some of the data that can support you with presenting something measurable to your potential funders.
Yes. One of the biggest things that schools I know are looking for is parent engagement. Right. That's one of the top three things that the schools are trying to do is parent engagement. And they have a very hard time in having the parents engage. The World Chess Academy has the parents engage with their child at the same exact time. Right. So they both going through my training at the same weeks. Right. It's not like, with some schools where the kid will go through something and then the parents are called at the end of it to show what they did all this time, or the parents are only involved in parent activities, like if they have some type of surveys for the parents. No, this is something that's in the child's home and their families to be engaged with at the same time. And I also instruct the parents to interact with me, right? If you loved it, tell me why you loved it. Tell your school why you loved it, right? Get them all involved and have them involved in helping me push this forward. So I'm not gonna go through this by myself. My goal is to create a movement behind me, right? And have the movement it be a no-brainer. And since everyone has already seen this, the school chancellor loved it. Some of the stuff he did a TED talk and he spoke about these brothers and their parent died, and then they was in foster care, and then the foster parent died a year after they got into foster care. Two of the brothers made it off and had a successful career, but one of them is in prison for life, right? And so the World Chess Academy and IFS directly deals with some of that grief. And so all of these things are in there, and because they're going to interact in my website, I have their information, their email addresses, and I collect their data from that point.
Thank you, Mona, and thank you, Ty. I just want to say for all of you who will be looking for funding or approvals or champions to help you with your program, what Mona said is critical, right? Understanding the pain point of the person you're addressing and being able to anticipate or measure some outcomes if you have the program in place, just to quantify and show some empirical evidence that this is something of value. So glad you're thinking in those terms, Ty. We'll take Anesi as the last comment or input, and then we'll move to the next presenter. Anesi.
Yes, Ty, thank you so much. You know how I feel about your presentation from that first moment that link was sent. I was like blown away from it. So I kind of agree with all the beautiful things everyone has said. I was wondering as you were speaking about, how you said 15-year-olds and stuff like that, but I really feel that your program has a possibility in higher education, and particularly City University of New York. For a while, I was a dean at Bronx Community College in the Bronx, and there was someone, Ty, just like you, that loved everything you're doing. He loved, but he didn't have your academy. He actually just was your academy. Like he lived it in his life, how he came to work, how he dressed. All these young kids from the Bronx were like, how do you do this? Who are you? How do you do it? I want to do something like this. And so every year, during like career, there's like a career day or like a career week. And that week, the students want to know how to dress. They want to know what to do. And I feel that I could connect you with him because I don't know what he's up to, but I do know him still. And I do know that all the career people in the different university systems would want someone to speak to what you're speaking to. Okay. And also I feel that other universities, when they're doing events and presentations, CUNY does a huge, like whatever research people are doing, you could say, this is what I'm doing in my community, because it's going to help their community, you see? So they're going to want to know what you're doing, and you're going to be bringing your academy, but also IFS to them and how you're merging these two. And I just see a place for it. I see a place for what you're doing in higher education. So I want you to think like, not just Board of Ed. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Anesi. And I think this suggestion, just your generosity of spirit and helping connect Ty with others is really an invitation to everyone as you hear other colleagues present, to figure out how you might assist them with your networks, with your ideas now or later. That's what's going to make this connection very, very helpful to all. Ty, this was wonderful, very inspiring. Kudos to you. We're here to support you whichever way we can, to cheer you on along the way. And I know you'll keep us posted.
Definitely.
Very good. Excellent.
Appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I guess we move to Anna next.
Yes. Well, I'm trying to bring my parts together from the excitement of hearing Thai here. Um, yeah, so I know I have only 20 minutes. I'm gonna put my timer here to make sure my time parts are all right. So I'm gonna share with you a little bit of a program that I have started like 7 or 8 years ago, but now it's kind of like becoming more and more inspired by IFS, and I wanted to continue being inspired by IFS. So the program is called Safe, Secure, and Love Resilient Families, and it's an idea of promoting intergenerational healing through community involvement. So how did this program started, or why did I get connected with this program, if anything? I come from a intergenerational transmission of difficult attachments, let's put it this way. Here you can see my mom and I, and I just want to honor her by saying that she passed away right around the time that I got accepted to this fellowship program. So that's why this fellowship is so dear to my heart. And in my journey as a daughter, through also my work with IFS, I am so connecting with the challenge of mothering and daughtering, the way we put it. And my mom had been an amazing mom, but when I was little, there were moments in where she was checked out because of the crisis in our family. And so I felt that she was not present for me. And now I understand that I developed parts that disconnected from her and couldn't feel the love and the care that she had for me. And I know I was one of her favorite kids, but it's been so frustrating for me to see that this unhealed part of me did not allow me to connect with all the love that she had for me. But I do trust that her love was present in some way or form, because when I became a mom, and this is where my two kids are, I had so much love and I felt so connected for them. And so I'm so grateful for the experience that I have and the relationship that I have with them. So for me, being a mother is a huge, huge thing. And I think it's one of the most exciting experience, I would say, in my life. And the more I learn about the role of parents, caregivers, the more I became excited about working with mothers. So just want to share with you a little bit about kind of like some of my intellectual motivation. So now more and more we are hearing studies that talk about the brain development of the baby and how the environment where the baby comes is influenced and molded. I like to see this sculpture there, because as parents, we are sculpting basically the brains of our little ones in structure and functioning. And there's this process of parent-child psychological co-regulation, which is an amazing process. And if we think about the science of resiliency, there are three main factors that increase resiliency, which is the ability to manage stress, develop thinking skills, and have supportive relationships. So what we find is that when there is a parent-child physiological co-regulation, these three elements are able to develop, right? Secure attachments, executive functioning skills, self-regulation, and all that is going to provide a healthy brain development, but also it sets a foundation of well-being and kind of like the best predictor of all well-being for the rest of the person's life when this happens good enough, let's put it that way. So something that I learned from especially Daniel Siegel was the importance of a healthy attachment. And that's the ability of a child to feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure. And I just wonder how many of us, when we were growing up, were able to feel those four elements, or to what extent, maybe some, but possibly for some of us, we did not feel some of those, right? And also how important is the ability of the mother or the caregiver to be emotionally present in order to be able to provide that environment for the kids. And I just want to make a little pause here. And I want to say that when I talk about working with mothers, I'm not trying to exclude anybody. I'm not trying to say that other caregivers are not important. I know that there's a lot of grandparents and fathers and other people that decide to just bring kids into the world. And I think they are amazingly important. But to me, kind of like what calls me is that specific mother bond relationship because of the bio emotional social kind of like bond that we have and the ability to influence our kids. So I'm not undermining or underscoring the influence of anybody else in people's lives or babies' lives. I just want to kind of like specialize because I think mothers also kind of like share some specific challenges because of the role that we are given by our culture and society. So moving right along, I know that sometimes okay. So what interferes with the mom's or the parents' ability to provide that healthy environment for their kids? There are many, many different factors. I'm not going to name all of them, but the most common ones we find is stress, right? The group of moms that I work with are immigrants, moms from Mexico, right? Most of them have financial problems, immigration status, isolation, right? Many moms go through postpartum depression. This is the biological aspect of being a mom, right? There's in some families, there's conflict, there's domestic violence, there's history of addictions, history of abuse in the mom, or sometimes even not having a healthy attachment to their own parents. So what they say is parental capacity gets formed between the ages of 0 to 2. So if a mom haven't received a healthy attachment, it's going to be very difficult that she knows how to provide that for her own child, right? And then we know that families face so many levels of stress, right? We have the whole study of adverse childhood experiences of things that happen within the family, but we know also that neighborhood, school, society, even the world provides plenty of stressful situations. And more now that I am into the epigenetics and the legacy burdens that are taught by IFS, we carry so many factors that may interfere with the ability of the mom to be and provide that emotional presence that the child deserves and needs, right? So here's where the program comes. I hope some of you have seen the video that I sent. So the Safe, Secure, and Love program is a trauma-informed, mindfulness-based, community-led parent education program. It was designed by a doctor from Santa Clara University called Barbara Burns. And the mission of this program is to promote intergenerational healing, family well-being, and resiliency. And the program is a collaboration from the Santa Clara University, a social service agency in San Jose, and Resilient Families Gilroy is the program that I have in my area. And it's thankfully supported and funded by the Department of Family and Children Services. So the program that we offer is 100% free to the parents. And these are the components of the program. So these are classes for parents. And what you see here are the 6 components that we emphasize in the class. And I'm seeing the time, so I'm going to go quickly through that. I don't have time to go through all of the components, but this program is taught by promotoras who are parents that finish the program and then they get trained to become the teachers. So it's not taught by professionals, but by other parents. And then my contribution to the program is the follow-up component. So what we have is listening partnerships. And in these partnerships, when parents finish their classes, they voluntarily decide to pair up and continue kind of like an informal follow-up with each of them. And this is where we kind of like emphasize kind of like the importance of the listening that is done from a self-led place, right? So the idea is when I am listening to the other person is I see you, I hear you, I validate your feelings, I hold you in my heart with kindness and compassion. I recognize a part of you suffering. Let's breathe together so you can connect with your inner wisdom. And that's what I promote kind of like as the building blocks of how a healthy listening partnership is all about. What I'm recognizing right now is a lot of people come in life with a lot of injuries from other people. So being seen and being heard, as beautiful as it can be very threatening. And so what I'm learning from this part of the program is we just have to go little by little how we can start helping moms to develop that capacity, to develop a healthy mutual relationship where there is the ability to be seen and held, that not everybody has that ability, but it's essential for the development of relationships, right? So this is something that I'm just starting, and I'm seeing how we have to do it little by little. The next component of the program is monthly support groups, and I'm just gonna, and in these monthly support groups, we talked about, that's when we start doing introducing the IFS concepts. And so I'm not going to go through this, but this is kind of like how I present the idea of self and parts, kind of like our self is like the sun, the parts are the clouds, and depending on how many parts are taking over, we may feel that the self is not there, but it's always there. Then we experience some of the qualities of self. So it's very experiential part of the support group. So I ask parents to, or moms to really think about times where they felt one of these, one or more of these qualities of self, so that they can connect with their inner wisdom. We talk about the importance of speaking from the parts and then listening again. So this is the part where parents are going to start developing that capacity to know about parts, recognize parts, speak for their parts, and then be able to be there as a presence for each other to develop this connection, inner connection with our own parts, but also interpersonal connections with others that is critical for resiliency. Next steps is I want to create a movement, actually, just like Thai, called Intentional Motherhood International. And actually, I am being blessed to have now the ability to connect with 3 other women that the 4 of us are going to present at the conference about IFS and motherhood, creating healing circles around the world. These other 3 women are already doing IFS groups with moms, with refugee moms, with moms that have children with special needs, mommy with preschools. So each of us have different experiences of working with moms using an IFS lens. So we want to create and bring together people who are passionate about motherhood and IFS to help us develop this movement that right now is mostly a dream, but it's hopefully becoming a reality pretty soon. And I need to stop. So this is where I am.
Anna, thank you so very much. This is also very, very inspiring and needed. And I know it's not a dream, but a vision, right? I like to think of visions, the things that are real in our mind and our hearts, and we're just manifesting the realization. Thank you. The floor is open for you to weigh in and share your thoughts and comments with Anna.
Anna, I love this presentation. One of the things that was occurring to me while you were speaking is how long this process has been for you as a 7-year program. And in a unique way that maybe some of us don't have, you might be able to share with us some insights as you have continued through the program in terms of like modifications and things that you've run into in terms of troubleshooting and things that you'd really have had to like change and adapt throughout a 7-year program. I'm curious about some of those insights for you.
Yes, thank you, Megan. Absolutely. The classes themselves, I'm doing it with a team. It's not just me. So, as you said, it's really difficult and it takes a lot of work. And we call ourselves the dream team because we really work to support each other. It's to me, as amazing as this program is, it's so difficult to bring parents in. So the recruitment is a really, really difficult process. But we have now a team, and the beautiful thing is that most of that work is done by promotoras who are other moms, right? And so they are the ones who can speak from the heart to other moms. But the IFS concept is something relatively new that I'm introducing. I actually started doing it basically at the beginning of this year, and I'm already learning so much because this idea of really people feeling comfortable being in groups or even in pairs, for some people is so freaking scary because of how hard we've been in relationships, but at the same time is the key to healing. I like to say we are hurt in relationships, but we heal in relationships. So now I'm learning that we need to take it very slowly for the moms to be able to develop that capacity to be there to see each other and to receive each other and to receive that connection, which is, to me, the critical part that is going to allow them to have a self-led motherhood experience. I don't know if I answered your question, Megan, but yes, it is a very difficult process. And yes, I will definitely need more and more support.
Other input.
Yes, I'd like to say something. So Anna, what's making it difficult for the mothers to come in? What's the challenge there?
I think it's at many different levels. And some of them is they may be so overwhelmed with their own realities that they don't want to take one more day to come to a class. And we provide free childcare, free dinner, and everything. Kind of like we try to get off all the obstacles, and it still is hard. Some people may think that they don't need support. I don't know, but it is. To have a class of 12 people that graduate between 10 and 12, we need to recruit and have 100 people say, yes, I am attending to the class. So at least 10 can be finished with it. So it is very difficult. I don't know if it's just a lack of awareness or just that they have too much going on in their plates, that they are in survival mode, but it's hard. I think that Truvet, and then I saw Sina too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see the other person, but yes, let's go with Trivette first and then Zena. Trivette, we cannot hear you. Why don't we? We still can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm going to be cut off. I will.
Truvet, you can send me your comment in the chat or an email. That'll be totally awesome.
Yeah, why don't we go to Zena, and then when you're, if we're still on this topic, Trivette, at some point you can join. Zena?
Thank you, Tawfiq. Thank you, Anna. That was really beautiful, and I find your work and always have very inspiring. I'm just picking up on the thread from the last comment about trying to solve this problem of engagement and attendance. And I'm wondering if there's any learnings to be had from behavioral science, especially around colleagues and friends of mine who do a lot of work in Africa and India and trying to solve, social problems of and having similar issues around engagement and attendance. And frankly, one of the things that the data and research shows works over and over again is incentivizing. And I'm wondering if there's some brainstorming around that. It's very in line with the IFS model. It's the cash advances, for instance, particularly to women in Africa. You see the markers of better education, better healthcare. And opposed to what one might think, oh, if we give them, a cash of money, they're going to spend it, and not that way. But so not directly that, but I'm wondering if there's other ideas that would incentivize people to come.
I like the word advances because that will give them in the room, that will bring them to the room. What we do is once they're in the room, we do prizes, we do raffles. We give them a little bit of monetary incentive, aside from the free dinner and free childcare. But the word advances, I like it. So thank you. That may be a good point to bring up.
Mona?
Yeah, with regards to that topic that you brought up, Sinat, I find that when I speak to the pain points of the participants in a write-up, say I'm doing a write-up for a conference, when I speak to not the solution per se, but maybe I speak to what the burdens, that can bring people in. So if I speak about the children's behavior instead of the parenting moves, then they think, oh, I'm going to come to this workshop and fix my kids. And then they get them in the door. And then you're like, oh, I got to look in the mirror and at myself. But I don't usually headline with the self work because that doesn't always get them there. You know, if their pain point, a lot of my thinking comes around, you know, codependency and wanting to fix other people, and teachers wanting to fix kids, parents wanting to fix kids. So then I speak to that burden's wound, and then get them in and then give them the tools.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm actually in the process of doing a video, like a little video to bring them in. So I'm going to take that idea, Mona, of highlighting first the burdens and then at the end, a little bit of the solution. So beautiful. Thank you.
A Trojan horse for peace. I like that.
Yes.
Any other questions? We can take one more before we move over to Richard's presentation.
Anesi, I think.
Anesi?
Yeah. Your microphone, Anesi.
Yes.
I thought I undid it. I'm sorry. I thought I unclicked it. Anna, thank you so much. I really like how you grounded your presentation in neurobiology and attachment, and you gave it kind of such a oomph to it. I know it's a program and it's still in one place, right, Anna? It's not like exposed out, you know, because I was seeing the potential of training others outside of your jurisdiction, you know, because I did love the video that you sent, and I showed it to my daughter, who's a school social worker, and right away she said, Mom, can she come to my school? Can she? I said, she's in California. I said, unless we do something Zoom-like, but I see the potential, you know, of training other school social workers, like in school districts, where they could begin to do what you're doing, but they also could share with you a lot of how they do the engagement, because parents have to, in the school district, parents have to come and be engaged because their children, you know, are in the school district, you know, and there's a lot of ways that they've done it within the school district. And in my daughter's school is a lot of, it's in Westchester County, but it's a very highly immigrant population, and they're being really overrun with immigrant families. So they're doing a lot of work with the immigrant families that are coming. And she immediately could see the potential, you know?
Yes,
So
yes.
I'm just thinking of, like, you could have chapters, even if it's 1 or 2 chapters in different schools, and test it out, you know? I mean, there's a lot. I just see so much potential, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you.
Talk about that more, because I also work with Joanna in Connecticut, who Tofik knows, and she has a model of self-leadership in the schools, but she's created it, like she has like a structure, kind of like what Ty is doing. She has it all visualized, but she does training. So I'm one of her trainees, but she's doing it international too. She has somebody in England, somebody in Germany, somebody in El Salvador. But she started with just one person, I think, in Texas, you know, like teaching her mom and then monitoring the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful idea. And you reminded me, I didn't say this, but this is a program right now that is only for moms that are pregnant or have children 0 to 3.
Okay.
Because we are kind of like reinforcing the idea of attachment at the very beginning. But what we see actually is that the parents that come, they have older kids as well. And they say, this program helped me with my 15-year-old and with my 18-year-old. And of course it does, right? But Barbara Burns, the one who created the program, wants to make it an evidence-based. So it's very research-based right now. And she does not want us to include parents that have children even 4 years or older. So if we get into the schools, of course, we get a lot more involvement with parents that are in schools. The challenge right now is that it's 0 to 3, but absolutely I can see that in the future, it needs to be expanded for different ages. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you could also, if I mean, it's 0 to 3 right now, but if you wanted to expand, you could start with the pre-Ks.
Yes.
The pre-Ks.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. It's great to think big, and I urge you, all of you, to think big and think about how you scale your programs. The other side of the coin is you want to make sure you don't become everything to everyone, right? Because you have your own skills and talents and areas of focus, and think about how you scale it within your system, and then eventually figure out how you branch out once you have it, you know, tight and robust. This is wonderful.
And Tofik, can I say something to that? That's what I love when Ty presented, that when you're a project is an evolution, and the evolution, suddenly you have this idea and that idea, and it begins to evolve, of course, tightening it. But you know, the fact that Ty has his mind map, like, yeah, I could do this and I could move over here. And I love that creativity. And when Anna said the same thing, she said, you know, and I'm moving from this to Intentional Motherhood International. It's like, wow, like what she's doing, like Anna could take from this program and create something even more new and international that expands. I just so much beauty in what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I concur with that, and I think it's important to see that horizon. At the same time, the organizer in me want to encourage you to not to lose sight of the fact that there's a lot happening in front of you, right? So it's a balance between vision and plan. Yeah, Anna, thank you so very much. Kudos to you and a lot of inspiration your way. I want to say hello to Gloria, and I didn't acknowledge Marcia earlier when I saw her join us. I think we're ready for Richard. The floor is yours, Richard. Thank you.
Happy Sunday, everyone. So I'm going to name very quickly that my anxiety and social phobia is very active today. I had to speak at new student orientation while being a new student yesterday, and I'm still coming down from that and now presenting here. I thought I had found my cool, and I just so I'm gonna calm down for a minute. I'm over caffeinated, so we're gonna have to on caffeine tea. My project, more or less, is kind of being reimagined for maybe the 5th time. Almost there, and I think this was probably going to be the way I move forward with it. So in about maybe 2 or 3 months, I have a book coming out called Healing While Studying, which is a collection of about 14 graduate students, all of some flavor of minoritized identity, including those in Europe, I think, in another country as well. Can't remember now. But that comes out, and that was the book where I kind of just grabbed, or put out a call for papers. I had 16 people respond, and we just held weekly writing sessions. You know, send in a proposal, like, what would you want to write about? How would you like to leave a gift for the graduate students that come after you on how you did it? Any sort of practice, experience, how you grew, just right? Because grad school eliminates a lot of people intentionally. So what did you do, right, to get through it so that other people can, work their way up? And as I'm starting my graduate program tomorrow, yeah, my intent has been to build community here. I think I'm at the process in my process where I can do the self-led thing, and I've been with parts all morning, but it takes community to actually to be connected, to have the pains, and to learn how to not choose suffering, but to choose to just get through the pain, right? Or how to create a sense of safety. If you can talk in front of a group of 300 graduate students and not really, fear some sort of shame or guilt. So I moved up from Atlanta to Buffalo late June, early July, and I've just been really quiet, which is very much me, and just watching people, sitting on campus as summer activities, kind of busting here and there, and watching them kind of pick up, popping in on meetings, just little things like that, doing the whole new guy kind of thing. And as I've watched folks, just kind of listen to them, kind of picking up how they're using their language, how they're relating to themselves, what I notice is there's not a whole lot of self-awareness. There's just an awareness of the parts. And as I talk with them, just casual conversation, they're very much interested in, like, okay, something else is going on here, right? Like, there's this, what's going on? They're kind of at that stage. Like, I don't even know what it is, but I know that there's something else. And the way I heal and the way I primarily kind of work through my healing is through writing. So my project is basically a very intentional writing accountability group for doctoral students that will self-select in. I'm going to quickly share. So I'm working in my draft in OneNote. But basically, so it's a structured community, as we said, created with guardrails. I don't like norms. I don't like rules or guardrails. They're just trying to keep us a little bit. We can always go over a guardrail if we need to, right? So it's comprised of only doctoral level students or early career folks. And that's basically there for differentiation. The doc student life and struggle is very different than the master student struggle. It's very different from the other struggles and the other experiences. And bringing in those early career faculty is intentional because they're often the most motivated to also help, not just get their career. They hit tenure or they're almost at tenure, they're not quite burnt out yet, grabbing them there when they're most friendly and available to reach back and help folks. Bringing a concept I've been working with my own parts, kind of creating and imagining what I'm calling compassionate accountability, which is taking the moments to breathe and slow down and wonder how I can hold myself or other people accountable without using shame, guilt, or really any sort of coercion. And then looking at that in more subtle ways. I am still kind of sometimes overwhelmed at the subtlety of how we shame people. It's there though. So really kind of bringing them in with that, which is a big thing that helped me in my process. Having that commitment to the self-led thing, and then allowing them to build, not really allow, inviting them, encouraging them, get my words right, to build self-selected affinity groups, however they want to organize categories or label it and pick however many they want. But the whole idea is to have a larger group session once a month where folks, I might have a university professor or somebody do a quick like 20-30 minute something, either on healing or like productivity or how to review for a journal or, you know, any of those sorts of like skills. And then every other week, the small group affinity spaces will quickly meet or check in. Like these aren't hour-long meetings. They might be 30 or 45, just touch and goes. Because the idea is for folks to talk throughout the time in between. But they'll come in with their writing goals, how they normally do, but they're also bringing in their healing goals, their wellness goals, and all of the domains that we can address wellness. And really, I'm kind of offering the space that's still not quite done and being made, creating this container enough to say, hey, this is what I'm working on. It's helped me. Do you want to come build community with me? And it's basically, I'm going to kind of package that up in a little bit of a, you know, a pitch to the university. But I've already talked to my advisor, who is he has a research center. I can't think of the official title. Director. There we go. A research center in Black history and racial literacy in P12. And we do book studies throughout the year for P12 educators, and we do a big conference and stuff. So he's actually picking this idea up to run it kind of under the center's name and through their network. Because that was one of my things, was I wanted to focus small, University of Buffalo, surrounding areas, or just people that I know, but also realizing, as we've kind of heard earlier today, like you need a lot of people that say they're interested to get folks that will actually, you know, do the thing, because it's going to be hard. Healing is hard. Writing is hard, right? So a lot of times people are just going to say no to the hard thing, and that's okay. I had a whole cadence that was mapped out, and when I talked to Toothpick earlier in the week, I really enjoyed the invitation to slow down and kind of drop the agenda a bit. Working with those parts, I think on Saturday was really helpful. Because like, oh, we got, you know, structure. We need control. We need to know what's coming. I've moved 3 times in 8 weeks. So like my transition, executive functioning skills and parts are done. So I'm craving any sense of predictability or like normalcy. So I'm actually going to delete all of that and just send an email tomorrow morning saying, hey, this is kind of what I'm working on. Do you want to help me with my homework and build community? And I'm intentionally going the kind of corny route, because it's my inner child parts that are really pushing this. as I moved during the transition, I've slept on so many different couches, just bouncing around until my space came available. And the one thing that I promised myself is whenever I would have a moment to stop and say, okay, what do you need? What do you need right now? And typically it was just, I need a minute to write, too full. So that's what I'm offering because it's what I need is someone to write with and hold ourselves accountable and trying to do that with compassion. So I don't think that was the 420, but that's where I am so far.
Richard, thank you not only for sharing your thinking about what you want to do, but how you're coming to it, right? I mean, that's very telling and very vulnerable, and I'm sure many of us resonate with that. So it's beautiful hearing how you're coming to that and what the issues are that you're dealing with yourself that's helping you identify the need and how you might invite others to share that with you. Thank you. Comments, insights, thoughts for Richard?
I'll flow in here. Richard, so amazing to see. I've got the privilege to hear from you a few times in the level 1 training and to kind of see the evolution. And I love what you just said about, creating the space that you kind of long for. I think that in of itself to me is the assurance that it's emergent and it's available. But it just reminded me when you were sharing, I've been doing some work with it's a project through the Forum for Theological Exploration. So it's mainly focused on, seminaries and like divinity schools at universities. But basically, we're trying to figure out a way to work with primarily BIPOC, PhD students in these historically white spaces, and asking very similar questions. So I mean, it was really encouraging and inspiring to see how you're bringing the intention to cultivate it. But I was thinking about one of the things that came up in our conversations was, again, time, other demands of life. People are working and families or whatever's happening, at the time, it's hard to find, to say yes to another thing. And so one of the things we're going to try to propose with the project is to see how we can weave in some aspects of the support space to the kind of requirements of the programs. So we have, kind of like a teaching symposium or something like that will be required. But and then in our institution, we're thinking like, how could we change that? What we do, take it out of kind of the old model and develop more of the healing, community building, mentorship, resource flavor to it. So I wonder, in that sense, as it's kind of, as you're thinking about the rhythms of this new, venture you're on there in Buffalo, and congratulations on starting tomorrow. But I wonder if there's any support like that where you can kind of bake it into things you already have to do, but make them enjoyable. So just something to put out there.
I like that idea. It's actually one of the reasons I chose to go with like a writing group. So I was like, I'm going to have a lot of homework. I have 2 other books to finish before the end of the year. I need writing. It's all it's all self-centered at this point. That's where I am in healing. It's about me. But I do like that because I'm actually hosting a wellness fair in October. So I'm thinking back of how I cannot tie these, kind of anchor them through, get us started before October, almost kind of bring that into the flow. And then coordinate with professors to see like when their big papers are going to be due. So I can send people reminders, even if it's like a drop-in writing thing, where they just start to get used to one another because we're so siloed. So thank you.
I want to jump in, Richard. Thanks a lot, brother. It sounds like you had a lot to contend with to be able to present today. So I appreciate you being here. One of the things on my map, right, was books and written content. And the one thing that I want to bring to the world is writing from a parts perspective, right? The character, like one thing that we realize in IFS is that we're not one, right? We have one self with many minds. And I want to start to produce and we should all start writing from a perspective of part of me wanted this or the part of me wanted that. So we can start to identify the internal conflict first before we identify the person's actions, so that every person is redeemable in every story. Even the person who's the villain, we at least understand where his parts came from, why it came from that perspective. So I think adding that idea to the writers and the people who are going to write with you adds a little bit more creativity in the creation of the writing, because my projects, it wasn't just me of today, it was those younger parts that helped me do that. That's why they were excited about some of these things. Once upon a time, I might have pushed off the children's book because I don't have time for that. I have other things to do. But my young parts like, no, we got stories right now. We ready, you know? And so I want to just throw that at you and see what you do with that.
I love that idea. One of the activities I was thinking of doing with folks is giving them prompts to build that writing habit every day, at least 50 to 100 words, like get something on paper, and giving them kind of self-led healing prompts or a contemplative prompt to imagine something, because it also improves their writing when they get ready to publish. I really like that idea.
Yeah, Richard, I also want to congratulate you tremendously on this idea. I think it's awesome that you're thinking about something that could be helpful for you first, your parts, and that can also contribute to the people around you. I just wanted to share that I do a lot of therapy with, I call them kids, but they are not kids, they are already young people that are college level. And I see how brutal can being in college be, and especially now in a PhD program. So I think this writing group could be a great, great gift, especially for this process of how do I move through, right? This very, very challenging time that is extremely exciting, but at the same time, extremely challenging, right? And I do see a lot of correlations between your project and Anesi. I'm sure she's going to talk about that. But I think that that writing idea, to me, let's say, writing is one of the things that helps me so much to unblend. So not everybody may like it, but the ones who do, I think is going to be tremendously effective. And I think that the idea of bringing in professors that may be able to support the process, I think is also really, really helpful. So congratulations. I definitely wish you the best. And I think you're going to be very, very helpful for a lot of the people that are going to be there with you at your level. So awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take Anesi as the last commentator before we go to our fourth presenter before the break.
Yeah, Richard, congratulations. And Richard, it seems like you've done this before, because you prefaced that you started, you have a book where you met with, 14 people. Like, you've done this, you got this, you know what you're doing, you know how to do this. And you like it unstructured and sometimes with structured, like you're open and flexible with how the group is forming. It could be unstructured, but then sometimes you could have prompts. And as you were speaking, it reminded me when I was doing my doctoral dissertation, we had to take comprehensive exams. And the way that I was able to pass my exam was that we met as a group and we wrote. We knew what questions were going to be asked. We didn't know how they were going to be asked, but we kind of knew what was going to happen. And just the writing, everybody sharing their perspective, I learned from the person that was there about what I needed to do or may have to do, because what was going to come out of the exam, we didn't know. But just hearing from other people stayed in my consciousness, just hearing and reading, because we would be together for like 8 hours every Saturday for like, I don't know, the whole summer until the exam came, because we had to pass that exam. And I remember that there was a question that was asked that I actually didn't study for, but somebody had written about it and had shared their writing, and it stayed in my mind. And I was able to then answer it. So, these group processes and the ways that you're doing it, which is writing, doctoral students, whatever they're struggling with, whatever they're going through, I think it's going to be so helpful to them, Richard. Not only to you, but you're doing something for other people. You're doing it for you, but you're also helping others. So I really support you in any way that you need. And I've heard about what you're going through because we were together in our dyad, but I'm here for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Tuvik, I'm probably going to log off so I can log back in and go for a walk. I gotta get this energy out.
No worries. Do what you need to do. Thank you for sharing, Richard. I know you've gone through a lot of obstacles to get to this point, and I hope that you'll have a very comfortable bed moving forward and a comfortable space to come back home to. Thank you. Tamika, if you're ready, we can maybe move to you as the fourth presenter, and then at the conclusion of that segment, we'll take a short break.
Sure. Can you all hear me all right? All right, so just short, sweet, and to the point, and then we can go to our break, right? Incorporating IFS in kind of a twofold model, incorporating it into the classroom. My students are predominantly seminary students, so using IFS as a spiritual practice, how to befriend parts, how to learn that you have parts. What does it mean to access self? And how do you incorporate that into a theological curriculum? So that's what I'm working on academically. In a hospital setting, as most of you know, or at least those of you in my group, I've re-entered the hospital as a chaplain. And so when able, using IFS as kind of a trauma crisis intervention with patients and families and staff as well. It's a lot of grief parts. It's a lot of parts that have experienced trauma, whether it be directly or vicariously. And so using IFS as just one more tool of grounding and centering to access self while folks are in the middle of some of the most traumatic and stressful periods of their lives. So that's those are the two ways I'm using the model. Eventually, also part of my student population is equipping chaplains on the rise. And so helping them get in touch with self and to stay grounded as they enter these very high octane environments, and how to journey with patients and families also. So that's it.
Thank you, Tamika. Another example of how IFS could be applied in all sorts of settings. And in your case, you're doing it in two separate environments. Thank you. Questions, comments, thoughts to share with Tamika?
Yeah, so I'm curious to know where are you now with the project, and what do you need? Like, what are some things you need help with?
I'm doing it now. And what do I need? I don't know yet. It's flowing as I would hope it would flow, right? So just continued conversation, I suppose, with you all. And some of you I talked to already, so that's good for now.
Tamika, how big are your classes? And maybe you can give an example of how you use it in the hospital.
Sure. So in class, before we get into lecture, I know you asked about the hospital, but I'll do it twofold. Starting with a guided meditation around parts and self-led energy. Something I did while we were in level 1 training, if you were in my groups. So just really continuing that. In the hospital, for example, during one of my shifts, I walked into a death, and it was a complicated family history. And so we did some exploration around shame and what that looked like in a very complex way for this particular family member to be losing their family member, even though the relationship had been complex, and some spiritual resources, whatever their traditions or spirituality may be, that gives them strength as part of their spiritual resources, also part of self. So how that was being utilized in the hospital setting, but it looks very different room to room.
Anna?
Yeah, Tamika, thank you for sharing those ideas. I think definitely needed. I'm very curious about, especially when how you integrate it in the program where you teach IFS and spiritual practice, because there's a part of me that sometimes sees that uh, people who turn to religion, and I'm going to say more religion than spirituality, can sometimes use religion as what we call spiritual bypass. And it's a distraction from the pain that I have to just turn everything to somebody else, to God or whatever, and God will take care of it, and God will heal me and all that. But I think the gift of bringing IFS is not denying the power of something bigger than us, but actually helping people recognize that in order to get even more spiritual, we do need to face our parts. We need to bring the parts of us that are in pain so that they can be unburdened. That way we can experience more of that self energy. So I'm very glad that you're bringing that to a place where you're forming people that are going to be spiritual leaders. And I just want to hear your comments, or how are you doing it, and how is it taken by people or your students?
Sure. A lot of my students, in a word, are spiritual refugees. They've been harmed by religion. And I don't, I honor traditions, but I stay more toward spirituality so that people can express it, whether it be through science or nature or whatever feels good to their spirit. And so incorporating it as a spiritual practice is to start to tap into, in a very regulated way, parts that they may need to deal with in a hospitable space. I can't really say it's safe for everyone. It's different. Safety is different. So in a hospitable and controlled as possible space, so that they have room to do the inner exploration, and then I'm there to be with and journey with how they need. And it's particularly important for people going into, for some people, it's ministry settings, whether that's a pastorate or being an attorney or a chaplain, because it also helps develop an ethic of compassion, not just towards self, but toward the world in general and creation, or the earth, however you theologically look at that. So that's how I'm using it now. Like specifically asking questions like, is there a part of you that feels this? What part of you wanted to do XYZ? To start to incorporate a part's language. And then hopefully as the semester goes on and I'm teaching other classes, to do just an introductory IFS course. A lot of my students are familiar with family systems, but not internal family systems. So yeah, that's how I'm using it right now in the classroom.
Thank you, Tamika, for a very thoughtful response.
Thank you all.
We can take one more before the break. Ricardo.
Yes, if I may, I mainly just wanted to thank Tamika. I really appreciate your confident self, and the knowing that you may not know exactly something right now, but you trust that it will unfold, because that applies to what I'm going through in regards to how am I going to apply what I'm learning, and who am I going to apply it to. And recently I had an experience in which it was a psychedelic medicine circle that I was going to be part of, and it ended up being canceled with this group of white folks But interestingly, because that got canceled, I got to meet this new other group of Hispanics who I ended up just thanking the universe, saying, "Wow, I wouldn't have able to meet these people if this other thing hadn't been canceled." So things are folding into the universe put place into things into place. And thank you again, Tamika.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Glad to hear that, Ricardo. You know, you put our intention out there, and hopefully the universe will respond. And if it doesn't, we look in under all the stones, and the answer is there somewhere. Why don't we take a 10-minute break if that's okay with you? And let's come back in 10 minutes. We have 3 more presenters, and then just some closing housekeeping, and we'll go from there. Very good. And I think Mona just shared with you some resource if you had a chance to look at it. See you in 10. Hello again. Calling upon fellows. We have 3 more presenters this afternoon. And I want to again start by thanking Ty, Anna, Richard, and Tamika for sharing your projects and getting us started. It's heartwarming to see the diversity of perspectives and approaches and audiences or potential beneficiaries and communities being built. Because remember, this is all about collective healing, right? Collective resilience. And each of you is working within your own community and looking at ways to expand the work within that community and in other communities that could benefit. So thank you for doing that. I think up on the docket is Mona, and then 2 more before we go to some housekeeping and logistics. Mona, are you ready to get us started?
I am. Thank you.
Floor is yours.
All
Thank
right.
you.
I put a link in the chat if you want to click on it. I'm going to share a little bit of an overview of what I'm thinking about right now. So for my project, I'm working on doing something from a faith-based perspective, which is different than my norm, which is K-12, but I think you'll see there's a lot of correlations in the content. So what I'm thinking about is putting together a course for Muslim parents who are mostly immigrants from Pakistan, India, and many Arab countries. And so it will be presented by me, and I'm naming it Connection Through Divine Love, and it's an Islamic parenting series. And what I was thinking is 6 sessions, 2 hours each. I was invited by the Islamic Center of Tucson to do, they called and said, can you do renewed harmony in the mosque? We see your, some of my posts on Facebook. So, the why of this is just hearing the pain points of the parents through the man who founded this mosque. He's not an imam, but he is a personal friend. And he was sharing a lot of their pain points. So I wrote that into my abstract for the course, some of the pressures that they're feeling of Western culture influencing their children and veering from Islamic values. But really, I have a concern for a lot of the areas that they might be missing in their own ways of being impacting their children's spirituality or connectedness to some of those core elements of really living a faith-led life and in relationship with a higher power of my understanding, which is different than I think a lot of what our parents who are blended with manager parts do when they can be more controlling than and fear-based. Maybe the exile and the anxiety of raising their children here in the West can take over. So I'm going to take some content from my courses, course 1 and course 2, that I do with teachers. I pull some of that content in, not quite yet fully yet of the sequencing of it, but I know that a lot of the sessions will be informed by some of that course content. So one of them is called Authentic Classroom Leadership, and the other one is called Enhancing Emotional Intelligence. So I'll pull from those. So what I wanted to do is share with you some of my thinking around how I've brought IFS into my community. I'm going to show an example of a session that I think can easily be modified from a K-12 space to a faith-based plan. And I just wanted to share with you 6 strategies that I had in mind when I built this curriculum, since I know that many of us are building curriculum, and this is some of the thinking that came into my mind when I built content. And I did share with you as links in this handout my full course workbooks for the other ones, so you could just see some of my thinking around how I put that together. So I'm going to close this out. You have this handout, but I'm just going to speak about this. I think I just want to share this now. So here's a session called, you see my screen? yeah, called Charging the Change Within. It comes from my course on EQ. And I wanted to go through these 6 strategies that kind of I can illustrate and model what I'm doing here with the parents in a faith-based plan. So this is something I present at conferences, but it also comes from my workbook on enhancing emotional intelligence. So one of the things I like to do is start with listen to a lot of stakeholders' pain points, witness their burdens, and identify themes. So something that comes up a lot when I listen to teachers is teacher burnout, difficulty balancing work and life. And so I offer them this taxonomy and ask them, how might you sequence it? What's at the foundation? Do you give before you have, do, or be, or do you be before you do, have, and give? And I think this could work with parents too. Parents who want to change their kids or fix their kids or, give everything, that martyrdom that can happen. So I ask, to frame it, should we order it? What can I give to others to have the results I want so I can do what I want to do before becoming the person I want to be? And I think we could very easily put the children in here, their own kids in here, what I have to give to my kids to have the results I want for them so they can do what I want them to do, that kind of a thing. And then, or do you flip it? And would it be who do I need to be and what do I need to do to have the results I want so I can give to others? So when I do that intro to this, I ask them and they usually tell me this is how they would sequence it. And then I ask the question after, norming the group, I'll ask the question for them to turn and talk to a partner just to get them engaged. And then I usually do some sort of a poll with their devices. So, which one do you see most in your school? And so then we can get a sense of, if we're doing more and giving more, then what happens when we neglect B or the outcomes we want to have? And basically, when I frame this, it's a lot about we think about what we want to do, what we want to do, what we want to do instead of who we want to be. And Eckhart Tolle says we're human beings, not human doings. So I like that. So I was thinking with the parents, if my first strategy, of course, is listening and witnessing, and then recognizing that a lot of parents haven't really thought about their own ways of being. They're thinking about the outcomes that they want for their kids, but not thinking about the be. That would be the alignment here. And then my second strategy, after listening to stakeholders, witnessing burdens, and identifying themes that are in this content, then I include self-led attributes in the intentions. So in my learning intentions for the session, you'll see some of those attributes of self embedded into it. And then the session is devoted to developing some of those attributes of self. And so that's the session that I would do, that I think the transcendent source really can be God in this situation. I don't name that in K-12 schools, but I think in this session I could, because I'd be inside a mosque. And then I have some success criteria of what we're going to be able to do in this session. And then I talk about Maslow's hierarchy in this session, but I try to not talk about it as in terms of a hierarchy. I try to talk about it in terms of a table instead of a taxonomy. But I do talk about transcendence and define it, as kind of stepping outside of where we are, outside of our place, and noticing how interconnected we are. And so I try to make an alignment between ways of being with transcendence. And so my premise for this session is, when we surrender to a power source outside of ourselves, we access the energy we need to release control, so we can use our strengths and talents to co-create the balanced outcomes we desire for ourselves and our children, to contribute to the greater good, serve others, and enrich the world. So that's sort of the framing for this particular session, which I think aligns well for the faith-based plan. So this would be like one session of the 6. And then what I did here is I tried to think about the polarization between sometimes self and managers. And so I put that into a visual that really speaks well to a lot of my audiences. So thinking about ways of being, and putting what I call a creator next to a reactor. So kind of the self part with the manager part, and giving them, without naming all of that, but just showing like we have these same letters, and if we rearrange them, look at what we, have the shift in the ways of being. And so they fill this in, and we look at how the generative leader and the depletive controller kind of see change. And I give 6 different examples of this, and we fill it in together, and I just explain them. And what I find is this is a pretty pivotal moment for a lot of the people who do this in trainings for teachers. And I'm curious how this would land on parents in the same situation. Just to become a little bit aware of maybe some of the themes in the control, in the manager part that's trying to control the kids, and maybe the codependent part that wants to fix other people, not be led or focused. But I definitely present that as a protector. So they turn and talk and discuss when they might feel like they are a reactor and when they might be more of a creator. And that's really great discussion. Turn and talk, bring it whole group. And then we just kind of talk about this idea of change, and, then thinking about what feeling makes us not want to do that, not want to look at ourselves. And then I bring that into abundance and scarcity because it's called charging the change within. So what's your power source? And I show this pathway. If your power source is aligned to your way of being, and your power source is something transcendent, when they're filling out the handout, we look at our energy, the input of it and the output of it. And this is where I align those 8 C's with the reactor and the creator. But I make sure all along, I'm not saying one's good and one's bad. We just talk about when these emerge and why, and name them as they play a protector part. This part is playing a protector role. And so as I kind of juxtapose the generative and the depletive, generative leader and the depletive controller, you're seeing I'm introducing the 8 C's, and I've juxtaposed them with the way of being of a manager part that may be blended with me, that I might think is who I am. And all along extending compassion from myself to those of us when we are kind of showing up in more of a manager spirit. And after I go through these and they fill them in and they have those 8 C's, I cite my source and say I didn't get these 8 C's from thin air, and I share them as these elements and I share some of Dick Schwartz as a site of source and all of that. And so people really, really, really like this introduction to this model. And I've had several people come back when I embed this in a course. I've had several come back and say, thank you, I started therapy as a result of this session. So I got my family into counseling. I didn't know what I didn't know about myself. And then we go into something we can do. So that we've been talking about ways of being, and now, okay, well, what's something I can do if I'm going up that taxonomy from be, do, have, give? The first thing I say is maybe, stop thinking about this misnomer of work-life balance, because there's so much that we have to do. How about we look at it as a table instead of a taxonomy? Work is 1/8 of my life. But what I'm thinking about doing here with the faith-based part is really honing in on spirituality and relationships. So giving a focus on this as part of the course. So I think what I'm trying to model is how through this, I've cultivated some curiosity. It's one of my strategies in curriculum writing. How can I cultivate curiosity before I share a new resource? And I think through the juxtaposition of these polarized parts, it helps people be like, yeah, I can see that. I don't want to be depletive. I don't like how I feel when I'm depletive. But then being able to say, well, why are you? And let's name it. And it's okay that these things stress you out in your life. So again, it's like kind of through a group process and taking some of the themes that I hear in one-on-ones and developing the curriculum from there. So then after that, we kind of do this shift our mindset from what can I change to what parts of me really need to be charged, and really like thinking about charging myself through like no more self-neglect. And so I was thinking with the parents, what would, when we focus on the spirituality side and the relationship side, is hopefully some of those pieces will come out, and then we can zoom in on that in the course. And so the next, strategy I use when I develop curriculum is I model with selective vulnerability, and I tell my own stories. So as I'm modeling how to fill this out, I am affirmed a lot in exit slips that people really like those stories. Just like Anna showing the picture of her and her mom, I do a lot of that too. And so like I model with my own health journey. I share some about my own weight loss, losing my voice during my thyroid stuff, losing weight, gaining weight, and then recommitting to like, my own process, scheduling a mammogram as a result of this session, doing it with teachers, getting diagnosed with cancer. All of this is elements of self-care that I think teachers need. But I'm also thinking that there's a lot of opportunities for selective vulnerability with telling my own story, being the child of immigrants, growing up here, going to K-12 schools, teaching at K-12 schools, what Muslims would call falling off the straight path and coming back to, my spirituality. I think there's a lot of opportunities for that in here too. And then, creating the space to practice a new skill. So now like they get to do it themselves, and then eliciting feedback at the end through exit slips. So they would do each section, they'd have a chance to kind of think about the areas that they would want to do for each of these. And then I'm just kind of going through, but doing some, let me see, just an exit slip, at the end where they have the opportunity. Sorry, I'm just going really quick here. So then at the end, they have a little exit slip they can go to, and they scan it and they get there. And I think I linked it for you on the handout, like some of the feedback I've gotten in the past. So what my hope is that I can take these elements of what frames my course creation and apply it to this this faith-based project, which I think a lot of the same tools, but maybe a different sequencing. So thank you for, I pass. I thank you all for listening to my session, my presentation.
Mona, thank you so much. And we appreciate seeing your very extensive renewed harmony curriculum. And I can personally just imagine how the application would work, how the adaptation of this work could help you reach out to the community you're planning to connect with. I think Megan has her hand up. We can start with her.
Wow, Mona, it's so cool to see what you're up to. And I actually remember in our level 1, somebody specifically asking, how do we translate Islam into IFS? Like, I don't know if anyone else remembers that, but there was this moment for me also, because I have a lot of clients who could fit into your group, where while I was listening, I was just thinking about how cool it is to turn these sort of like the do, these actionable steps of what I think most people, and being sort of like a therapist on the ground, who the number one thing you get, the first thing you get when you hear people's parts is always an overwhelmed part. That's like, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to even engage in this process. So first of all, I love this, this actionable kind of, right, like we're doing, and that concept is really struck me. Also, I love that it actually feels almost like the way you translated this into creator or reactor is like, it could be so ubiquitous for any kind of religion and any kind of spiritual process, which is also something that I sort of more of a question for you. Like, you know, like I hope you're okay with me even just like borrowing some of that language in my sessions of like that we don't have to minimize sort of, oh, well, you're Muslim or you're Christian, that means we can't work together. We actually, I love seeing how you've created a universal language within the parts world that feels so necessary and relevant. And I also wanted to, last thing I want to just speak about is like the change versus charge. It's something that for me, I felt some type of way, I guess, about the IFS model in regards to a change agenda. That feels like a part to me. When people talk about, right, like this sort of, I'm here to change you as your therapist or your helper in any kind of way, that's problematic for me. I feel like it comes from within. That's what self energy is. Nobody heals me, nobody unburdens me. I unburden myself, I heal myself. And that's really, you struck a chord there for me when you were talking about how that links up with this idea of creator. Creator is within, and also changes within. We have the agency, personal agency, to charge instead of change. Love it. So my question for you, sorry, I'm rambling because I'm like, did I also just ate lunch? I think I was a little depleted before that. Is, yeah, how do you, or how would you make this transferable to other people, other religions? Is that something that you consider? Are you okay with that? Or yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, so I wrote this content for teachers, so this will be my first time using it with any faith, but it's my hope to be able to use it across, in different forms, not just with Muslims. But since I was invited to the mosque and I decided to go with the faith-based group, since I was already pretty, had a lot of curriculum already made for K-12. So yeah, I do think it could go to other spaces where I'm invited and where the universe, leads me in this work. And thanks for the feedback, Megan.
Thank you both. Tracy?
Great. Hi, Mona. Thank you for sharing about the amazing work that you're doing with Renewed Harmony. And I also just wanted to start with gratitude for the way that you're introducing the model. I think that like when you got to the slide, that was just like breaking down the qualities of a generative leader and a depletive controller. I felt like perhaps like, especially from a parent's perspective, how enlightening that could be, and also helping them think a little bit more about like, how do I want to feel as a parent too? Do I want to feel like generative, or do I also notice the parts of me that may lead me to feel more depleted unconsciously? So I felt like that was a really great way to bring people into the model, especially if they've never like heard about IFS before. And I have more questions that are coming from the context of what's been present for me in my organization in the last few months. And also just like in response to a lot of like this country's, like a lot of like, there's been so much anti-LGBTQ sentiment with the rise of like white Christian nationalism. And like we've seen more hate crime or like anti-LGBTQ bills in this country than in so long. And what we've noticed at Vigilant Love, which also works with a lot of Muslim communities, especially queer and trans Muslims who have also just been feeling either invisibilized or not welcomed in the masjids, is just a lot of hurt and pain. And there's been a lot of polarization recently because of a recent Navigating Differences statement that was signed on by a lot of imams and various Muslim leaders in the community, which I imagine you may have already heard about. So that came out in May, and I guess I would add in Vigilant Love and with other queer Muslim organizations or other like ally Muslim organizations that we're connected with, there's been a response of creating the Queer Muslim Solidarity Network. And right now it's really a network to be like responsive and be thinking about like, what are the spaces that we need to create? What is maybe the perspective and storytelling and analysis that we need to uplift for queer and trans Muslims? And And yeah, I guess, like I think it's been a concern of like a lot of people in that space feeling like, oh, it's like really hard at this really polarized moment in our community. How do we also um, be there more for just like the cultural shift or the support that's needed within the community? And so I was just curious about your thoughts because it sounds like this is like a parents focused program. And I imagine that those may be some of the issues that parents come forward with potentially, especially as they're concerned about like the influence of like the West on their youth and their children. And I'm just curious about how you might hold that with an IFS perspective. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there, and there's also a lot of though internal like politics to navigate within the Muslim community and within all of our faith communities, because homophobia and transphobia is just across the board in all communities. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, Tracy, thank you so much for bringing that up. I'm pretty familiar with the platform of Muslims for Progressive Values. I'm sure you've had to have heard of them. Have you, Tracy, heard of them, Muslims for Progressive Values?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so they do a lot of, affirming identities of queer folks who are Muslim. The person who wanted to hire me, he took a stab at writing the like workshop synopsis. And here's what he sent me via text. One of my Muslim friend's son changed his sex to a girl. Parents scratched their heads and asked why. Another friend's daughter turned lesbian just to spite the spiritual aspect of their parents. Parents asked why. Another friend's kid turned to be an atheist. Same question from the parents. Sure, we don't have an answer, but maybe we do. Can you help on this? And then he says, so that was his way of trying to invite parents to come to this because their pain point is the gender and sexuality of their children. So I rewrote that. You can see in my summary, it doesn't say anything about that. I do think there's a real opportunity here. And I'm getting a lot of my content from this book, Secrets of Divine Love by A. Helwa. And what I love about it is she asks us to shift our focus onto like the scriptures that are centered around Allah being compassionate and merciful and loving and just focusing on love and so many of those core attributes of self. And so that, I think you're right. I think this could be a conversation across anyone who is blended, anyone who's a faith leader or a religious leader blended with a manager part that wants to fix people and fire and brimstone people. And so, I'm just doing it from my vantage point, from my corner of the world, from a culture that I'm familiar with, a religion I'm familiar with. But in these trainings, I can anticipate that there would be an opportunity to redirect when people are demonstrating transphobia, homophobia. And I'm up for it. I'm up for it. And I hope to create the conditions in which that it doesn't go in that direction and that I can give some tools and to bring some people together. So I do really appreciate the question. I've been thinking a lot about it.
Thank you for these questions and thank you for your answer and for your resource. I want to really encourage all of you where you see these areas of common interest to reach out to each other and have conversations offline. This is where the real work actually happens and the real support, right? Getting together is just basically giving us a sense of what's possible. So I hope that you'll be able to have conversations and support each other as you move forward, because there's a richness of knowledge and expertise and deep insights within this group. So please do so. And Mona, thank you so much for your plans. We're here to support you in any way. And I want to remind everybody that I'm offering my time where you need it between now and the end of the year as you develop these things further. So I think we're ready for the next presenter, and that will be Anesi, if you're available and ready. Thank you. Thank you again, Mom.
I just got to unmute myself. I couldn't see the unmute button. Okay. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for those of you who have emailed me with your support and your wonderful feedback. And I am so excited to present Insight today. And I really want to thank the support of many of you, because I feel that this has been an evolvement. I've evolved throughout the past 2 years to get to this point of creating Insight. And in Spanish, Insight is tinta interior. And I came to the word through a dream, Insight. And at first it was INKSIGHT. But in Spanish, the translation is tinta perspicacia, and it's a very difficult thing to say. So then I changed it to Insight with SITE, and which means tinta interior. And a translation really is like interior ink. So this is a fusion between the elements of expressive writing and internal family system to help individuals explore and embrace their unique narrative. So you all know that I am a professor. I do teach clinical social work in graduate school, but I also teach an expressive arts course in clinical practice. In that expressive art, I teach expressive writing as well. I teach visual art and all of that, all of the expressive arts. And I've been teaching it for some years now. But I'm also an artist beyond being a professor and a therapist. And I do a lot of digital collage and drawing, paintings, watercolors. And I'm also a creative writer, and I write fiction, poetry, and I have a collection of short stories called My Daughter's Eyes and Other Stories. And so I kind of balance my two lives as a professional therapist and professor and the life of the creative. And this is being at Touro College has given me the opportunity to merge both my psychotherapy and my art, because they allowed me to improve the course on arts intervention. And that meant that everything I did creatively also became my scholarship. So I'm at this point where I don't have to hide that I'm an artist, or that I draw, or that I paint, or that I do collage, or that I write stories. A lot of the collages that you'll see here are mine. And so I'll just go. So this particular collage is the woman that came in my dream, an ancestor, a Haitian great-grandmother maybe. Her name is Play Boucher, and she was the one who said, you have to merge these things into writing. She came with a pen and asked me to do it. And I woke up and I said, oh, wow, yeah, let me merge these things together that I love so much. I do teach expressive writing for a program called Dominican Writers. And I also teach a dream workshop for them on how to use dreams for creative writing. And I noticed that I was using a lot of elements of IFS in my dream creative writing course for them in May, June, and July. And that really solidified a lot of what I'm doing, because I was using it for the dream workshop. And then I said, oh, I could use this for expressive writing, not just for my dream workshop. If you see the link that I sent you, I know maybe some of you have not been able to see it. So I don't want to rush through the presentation, but I do need to kind of, pass by some PowerPoints just for time's sake. But if you do watch the link that I sent you, and I could post it on chat again if you haven't, I kind of explain, the agenda and the things that I'm going to explain. The link is about 25 minutes. I talk a little bit about me, which I shared with you already. And I'm an educator, therapist, writer, artist. And my idea, I do curriculum development at the university, both for in-person courses and distance courses called asynchronous courses, where there's no professor. And I started thinking about a curriculum for a course where I can fuse expressive writing with internal family system. And I just began to brainstorm on that. But what I am going to share with you is just what it would look if I did a workshop, like for Dominican writers. What would it look like if I did a workshop? And I kind of created that one little workshop with some examples, just so you can have a taste of what it would look like. But the expressive 16-week course would explore the intersection between expressive writing and internal family system as a powerful therapeutic modality for personal growth and healing. And students or clients that came to take this course, because it doesn't have to be a university course, would learn how to integrate practice of expressive writing within the principles of IFS to facilitate self-exploration, self-expression, and inner transformation. And through a combination of theoretical discussions, experiential exercise, and practical application, they would develop an understanding of both expressive writing and IFS for personal growth and transformation. But I was thinking that I said to myself, this course can also be delivered in one session, intro workshop. It can be delivered in 8 sessions per semester, or it could be a 16-week course with dozens of distinct writing exercises for a journey of self-awareness and empowerment. Of course, the target population is Latino community, but it could also be general community, graduate, undergraduate students, or general public, and creative writers. Creative writers, and I, as I was thinking about it, I was doing a lot of the exercises with creative writers in mind, because I could actually pilot this with Dominican writers, because I've done workshops for them, and they're looking for me to participate more in their Sunday salon. So Dominican writers may be interested in such a course, as I facilitate workshops for them before. I do have my community engagement is Mighty Network, and some of you use Mighty Network, some of you know of Mighty Network, but it's a platform that enables creators to build their own online social network courses and communities. Mighty Network is free if it's just for social network, but if it's to create courses and a larger community, then you have to pay for it, but there's different levels of payment. So I do create courses, and I have courses in my Mighty Network, because it's not just for my Insight project, but Insight has a space, because you could create spaces. So if you do a lot of different things, you could have different spaces for the things that you do. So presently I have 24 members, and they can invite other people, and it's designed to bring together people around shared interests, a passion, or a goal. And it also provides tools and features to facilitate education, communication, and collaboration. And I really love training in their community design, because it really helped me design this community as well. And I'm researching how to create community within such a platform. Mighty Network is a paid subscription, but right now I'm not charging because I'm creating and developing it. But I could charge for spaces that have nothing to do with this project, as this project is a pilot. And I also charge for my courses. So that's Mighty Network. So what's expressive writing? So it's a therapeutic practice that involves writing about thoughts, emotions to promote self-awareness and emotional processing. There are prompts given for specific reasons for whatever creative writing project you're doing, which I'll share how I'm doing it for this project. The benefits are to reduce stress, anxiety, enhances self-leadership, encourages self-reflection, and fosters resilience. And I love this quote on expressive writing. Expressive writing changes us. It brings peace to our heart. It restores balance. Writing connects us to the parts of ourselves that have been lost, abandoned, neglected, forgotten, or ignored. And we learn that there are wise, friendly, and reasonable aspects of ourselves that want us to succeed. These best selves are willing to share their wisdom within us. Writing is the bridge. And that's from Kathleen Adams. I've studied with her, Your Brain on Ink. And I use a lot of her methodology to create expressive writing prompts, the prompts that I will use here and I will share. I won't go into family, IFS. This is all about what IFS is all about, which we already know. And I kind of shared about the parts. I'm just going to go into the section where I talk about how IFS and expressive writing kind of merge together. So expressive writing and internal family system complement each other by creating a very powerful synergy for deep exploration of inner and self and emotions. So expressive writing, it externalizes thoughts and emotions and makes it easier to examine them. And IFS offers the structure and the method to engage with those thoughts and emotion. Expressive writing promotes self-acceptance and integration, and IFS facilitates embracing and integrating these. And in compassionate self-interaction, expressive writing sets the stage for accessing emotions. And when individuals apply IFS principles to the parts they expressed in writing, they can develop more compassion towards these parts, which lead to healthier inner dialogue. And enhanced insight, expressive writing uncovers thoughts and emotions. Internal family system helps individuals explore the roles and the origins of these thoughts and emotions with compassion. This deeper insight fosters personal growth and transformation. Now, an insight structure would look like this. This is for if I were to create a course and I have bullets and all these ideas of what would I do. And I won't go through all of them, but an introduction to expressive writing and internal family system, the theoretical foundations of expressive writing, and then the introduction of IFS, and then the process of expressive writing, and then applying IFS to expressive writing. And then it continues. But what I want to jump to due to time is actually to Insight and just a little session example. So in Insight, if I did a workshop in the next month, which I'm planning to with Dominican writers, it would be exploring self through expressive writing in IFS. I would welcome participants, introduce the workshop purpose and goals, a guided mindful meditation, of course, explaining the concept of Insight as a fusion of expressive writing and IFS, and then setting intentions for participants to explore their inner life landscape through writing and IFS principles. I am using the ladder, which I'll explain in a minute, but I'll introduce IFS and its core concepts such as self and internal parts. Participants will be given an inkling, which is a prompt to write freely without worry of grammatical errors, and they will explore different aspects of self and parts and then reflect on that experience. Expressive writing prompts are based on Adam's expressive arts methodology. I will be using the ladder, the journal ladder, to design the prompts because it's best to start with structured prompt like sentence stems, list inventories, clustering, and then progress up the ladder to less structured activities such as free-flowing writing. So it's kind of like very polyvagal, where you're starting down here in the bottom and moving up the ladder to a more capable of doing free-flow writing. And it's going to look like this. So again, the journal ladder creates a continuum of writing techniques, moving from the most highly structured pace and contained at the bottom of the ladder to the most unboundaried, unstructured at the very top. And it teaches participants to intentionally add structure, pacing, and containment. When they begin to feel a little bit kind of out of control, they could go back to listing and making bullets. This method is Your Brain on Ink, a workbook on neuroplasticity, and the journal ladder. So the journal ladder is a gentle progression from reflection to insight. Guided prompts are thought-provoking queries for self-discovery, and expressive writing rituals integrating writing into daily life. So inklings, again, are writing process. Participants write from a prompt. They use the instructions as guidelines. They bring intention and attention to the prompt, and then let the action of putting pen to paper or fingers to key emerge. When they complete that structured write, they then turn to a reflection and take another 2 or 3 minutes to read and then write a few sentences of reflective feedback on what they notice in their writing. Here's an example of a structured prompt, which is the first on the bottom of the ladder. Oh, and please note, I don't use all the prompts that are here. These are just examples. So a sentence stem would be fill in the blank with a word or phrase, and this may openly universal or highly customized to an individual immediate question, problems, or interests. You could customize. So you could say, today I feel like, or the weather inside of me is, or a part of me feels. And structured write is a series of sentence stems that are grouped and sequenced to reveal a consistently deeper layer of information and awareness. So it could be a part of me feels like, when I considered the problem or issue, I realized that I have a part that's trying to keep me safe by, or I feel conflicted about the problem or issue because there's a part of me that wants to blank, but there's another part of me that, and allow that process to be. So that sentence, that's the first in the bottom of the ladder. The reflective feedback happens at every prompt. Giving yourself a sentence or two of reflective feedback. You can start with either a prompt below, as I read this, I notice that, or I'm aware, or I see, or I'm curious about, or I'm interested in, or I think and I feel. So you give them those options to do their reflective recite. But then they have to share, where in my body do I feel this response? Where does these responses land? Where do I feel this right? Noting somatic experiences increases an embodied experience with the writing. And then you end writing with a gratitude exercise, thanking each part for its role and expressing your commitment to their well-being and integration. So, so the reflective right is the key to developing an observational muscle necessary to notice what is happening as a function of writing. And the reflection right harvests insight, codifies thinking, and brings detached mindfulness to the writing process. And it comes at the end of each writing session in the form of 1 or 2 sentences. As I read this, I'm aware of, what did I notice in my body as I was writing this? What is an action step that I could take to move my intention and attention in the direction of what I want? The reflection right develops the habit of checking in with the embodied experience of writing, a good gauge of how the nervous system is processing the writing. So then there's 10 minutes of introduction to IFS and self-leadership. After this part, exercises will move to IFS and self-leadership. I will explain and also emphasize the importance of compassionate self-awareness in managing and integrating parts. For example, a 5-minute writing sprint will be a good example of a writing prompt in this area. So a 5-minute sprint looks like this: a time writing process designed to focus and intensity in short bursts, excellent for those who are new to writing, who are uncertain about where to start, or who state that they do not have time to write. So visualize yourself in its quality. Could be close your eyes and visualize yourself as a radiant and centered presence in you. Focus on the qualities and characteristics you associate with self. Write a description of this visualization, paying attention to the sensation, emotion, and insights that arise. Or it could be explore your authentic self. Reflect on moments in your life when you felt most connected to your authentic self. What were the circumstances or activities that allow your true essence to shine? And describe those experiences in detail and consider what qualities or values were present during those times. So that's the 5-minute sprint. Another guided IFS exercise, one can lead the participants in a guided meditation, visualization to connect with their inner self, guiding them through a brief IFS session, mindfulness exercise, focusing on an issue or a challenge raised during the expressive writing session. Encourage participants to dialogue with their parts or offer self-compassion. So it could be like this: dialogue with a challenging part. Choose one of your parts that often presents challenges or conflicts in your life. Begin a written dialogue with this part, asking it questions and allowing it to respond. Explore its motivation, its fears, its concerns. Try to create a compassionate, open conversation, aiming to understand this part better and find ways to work together more harmoniously. Or it could be an inner wisdom dialogue. Set aside some quiet time right now. Invite yourself to speak to you. Begin a written dialogue with your inner wisdom, asking open-ended questions and allowing the responses to flow naturally. Explore the insights, the guidance, and perspectives that emerge from this conversation. In the middle of the ladder when you're going up the ladder, there are some really cool exercises. So I put IFS exercises in it. So the middle of the ladder is like an unsent letter, a metaphoric communication to another that is written with the specific intention that it will not be shared. But I could ask them to write a letter to a younger self. Reflect on your writing journey and think about the challenges and obstacles you face. Or it could be different depending on your needs. Write a heartfelt letter to your younger self. Offer guidance, support, and encouragement. Address the parts of yourself that may have experienced doubt, criticism, or fear along the way. Or it could be a character sketch. That's part of the middle of the ladder. A written portrait of a part of an aspect of the self can also be written about emotions by personifying an emotion or giving it a characterization, appearance, a style of dress, personality, and temperament. From an IFS perspective, it could be visualize your inner part. Close your eyes and visualize your inner parts as distinct characters or symbols. Imagine them standing together in a room on a natural setting and describe their appearances, body language, and interaction. Reflect on the emotions and dynamics you observe and consider what these visualizations reveal about your internal system. So that's middle of the. On the upper part of the ladder are more intense exercises where dialogue, a metaphoric conversation written in 2 voices. Anyone or anything is an appropriate dialogue partner. There is no constriction, time, or space. So like I said, you could dialogue with your inner part, explore a conflict between parts, think of a conflict or tension you experience in your writing process. Identify different parts of yourself involved in this conflict. Write a dialogue or a narrative where these parts express their perspective and desire, and explore how you find a resolution or harmony between them. And then another aspect of the upper ladder is perspective, an alteration of the point of view that provides a perspective or an event or situation. It may be an alteration in voice, like write in the third person instead of the third person, or time, write in the future or in the past. So an IFS exercise would be meet your inner critic. The inner critic is a common part that can hinder creative expression. Create a character based on your inner critic and write a scene where your conversation with this part. What does it say? How does it affect your writing? Explore ways to transform this inner critic into a more supportive or constructive voice. But at this point in the top of the ladder, they could create a dialogue or a little short story of this particular inner critic. So we finished going up the ladder. Oh no, we have two more. So Springboard is a free write. Now they're writing freely. Start a free write with smaller structures of questions, thoughts, or topics. Meet your inner critic. The inner critic, so we shared that one. Create a character map. Develop a visual representation of different parts of yourself as a character in a story. Draw or write descriptions of each character, including name, traits, and roles, and reflect on how these parts influence your writing process and the dynamic between them. And then free write, unbounded, unstructured, unpaced writing, narrative writing, useful for just creative flow or spontaneous writing, can be structured by adding a time limit or a page. And then closing and takeaways. Summarize the key insights, the takeaways from the workshop. Encourage participants to continue to explore the synergy between expressive writing and IFS with prompts and journal assignments that one can give them. And thank participants for their participation and engagement. And then additional tips to ensure a calm and conducive environment for writing and introspection, providing a writing material. They could bring their notebook, or I could create Inksight journals or Inksight notebooks or Inksight pens, and keeping the pace of the workshop steady, allowing enough time for writing in IFS. And I've done enough expressive writing that you need to leave enough space for people to write, and then enough space for them to rewrite, and then enough space for them to share. So you have to kind of think about how long the workshop would be. And then emphasize the importance of self-care and self-compassion throughout the session. I did send a resource list, so I want to thank you. I'm coming to the end, but I did make just one little mistake in my, I made one little mistake, and I just want to rectify that I tried to put it in here, but I couldn't do it, which is, and I wish that, oh, there it is. Okay. So in IFS resources, I put the Center for Self-Leadership, and it's actually the Foundation for Self-Leadership. And if you go to the Foundation for Self-Leadership, you'll also see that the foundation has created the Leadership Fellow Program in partnership with IFS Institute to support current. So I put the link to that in my new PDF, which I'll send to you. And that the foundation also has launched an entirely new magazine called Parts and Self, which I thought was fascinating. So I just wanted to add that to my presentation, that I just love that. So, and that concludes. I try to add it to the chat, but it's not allowing me unless it's through Google Drive or something else. But I'm just super excited about this community project, and it's, creativity excites me, writing excites me. So
thank you. It's very, very creative and certainly very detailed. And thank you for walking us through it. And thank you for the plug for Parts and Self.
Yes.
We're approaching 1 year, actually. It's pretty intensive undertaking. We have maybe time for one or two comments before we move to our last presenter for today. Thank you again, Anisi.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I just want to thank all of you for your support, and the beautiful feedback that you've given me has been extremely heartfelt.
And I want to say, I noticed how, in your last slide, the person who creative writing, expressive writing was just an insight, has become part of it.
Yes.
Yeah, that was very, very, very creative and expressive.
Thank you. Yeah.
Input.
I'm speechless, Anesi. of the complexity, but the beauty of what you created. And I love that you share with us about how it came to you through a dream by an ancestor, because I think that's really kind of like when the universe downloads information, it means
Yes.
that it's really going to be touching so many people. And I see this apply in many, many different environments, not just the Dominicans, not just the Latin, and
Me
many,
too.
many
Yeah.
places. I think it's amazing how you were able to blend both,
Yeah.
and especially that you can do this as a group thing.
Yes.
Because let's say I like writing and it's very helpful for me, but sometimes I get lazy.
Yes.
So when you have a group of people writing, also that share of ideas and of parts can make it create that safe space that I was talking about of like, yes, being with other people is hard and sometimes I get criticized, but also being in these spaces where everybody's going to listen to my parts and they're just going to embrace me and I'm going to learn from other people's parts. I think it's tremendously healing. So kudos and congratulations. And I love what you're doing.
Thank you, Anna.
Yes, I want to jump in. So there's some of the things that you were mentioning with your writing exercises is some of the very things that I'm doing in the self-led video course that I'm going to create. And the reason why I was going to create that training is because there was some of my guys, you know, they shunned therapy, and I had one guy who had an IFS session on the calendar with me, and he said his counselor recommended that he needed meds because he was so down, you know. And I told him, you know, speak to me first, and then you decide. We had a session, and he was like, I don't need the meds, like I can see a way. And I just seen him at a retreat. We had a retreat for our guys, and he made sure that he came there because you know I was going to be there. And he's a singer songwriter. You know, it's something that Anna said was that writing helped her unblend.
Yes.
And so my goal of creating that visual representation is to start to influence us all to start being more self-led in all our creativity, whether it's writing, speaking, parenting, whatever it is, that we're more self-led and however way we can get to it, we're going to get to it. And so you and I need to chat about how I can, because the ideas of creating that and putting it in a visual place, I think will help support some of what you're doing as well.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful, Ty. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And there's some good chats being shared with you.
Okay. Thank you. I'll check them.
And I appreciate Tomika's comment because I was also thinking about how we can get Richard, who had to leave to listen to your video. You know, we'll make a point of that. That's fantastic. And again, I want to echo Mona's last comment that this is what this is supposed to have, you know, generated interest, collaborations, conversations offline. So I encourage you to do that. I think we're ready for Latasha. If you're ready, Latasha, to give us an overview and engage your fellow mates in a conversation around your work. Thank you. Thank you again, Anis.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you for your comments on chat.
I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen here. Oh, boy. Okay. Are you able to see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So first I just want to extend a heartfelt thank you for everyone who took time out of their schedules to review and provide me with feedback. It was extremely helpful. And more so than being helpful, it was actually really encouraging. In undertaking this project, I wasn't quite sure what it was going to evolve into becoming. And so your affirming comments were very supportive in letting me know that I am on a pathway in which I'm envisioning this to be helpful. You're echoing that you also can see this being of good use, again, was very supportive. So thank you so much for that. So just to give an overview of the project, I came into this with children in care at the center. And just to give a little bit of background about me and how I got to that point, I've been a therapist now for about 3 years, and also had an opportunity to work with kids in care and those that support them. So much of that work that I did or that I do was inspired and influenced in some of these stories that came forth. And just kind of naming, my helper's heart, saw that there was a need to, again, bring focus and attention to children who were in care. And then the helper's hands were like, okay, well, what can we do? And so again, this is kind of a manifestation of that. And what I see this becoming is guided activities in which individuals who are supporting children in care can use with the children. And there's also a book for them as well. So more specifically, the two workbooks that you see at the top here for children and teens, the first one for children is intended for the children to go through the workbook with a supportive adult, just given the content and also why children in care. I feel it's very important to make sure that there is a compassionate presence and a nurturing figure that's able to support children as they go through this. And while it would be ideal for teenagers to also have that as well, sometimes that's just not available. So I wanted to really make it and write it in a way where if that was not accessible to them, they can still work through the workbook, and likewise for foster parents. And I'm still developing the workbook for parents. I'm also creating support material for individuals who will work with these different populations. So again, while the teen and the foster parents book is written in a way where they can work independently, ideally, if they're able to work in a supportive environment, that's also a plus. I do have the task of condensing some of the worksheets and activity sheets. I had parts that were super excited and just gave me a lot of good input as I started putting the workbooks together. So I do acknowledge that, that there is a need to condense some of the information that's being presented. Just gonna scroll down a little bit here. And then in terms of like the task ahead, what I've identified for myself, and again, this is definitely a work in progress. There's a lot more work that I need to do. But essentially what I'd like to be able to do is bring illustrations into the workbook. So I'll need to identify, someone to support in that area. I also have the idea of perhaps having this digitized. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to happen again. This is the vision, and I'm again not trying to run through this too quickly. I want to make sure that it's done right and that I also have the stamina to see it through. So again, what I'm naming here is very aspirational, and I do acknowledge that there's some work to be done, but these are just some things that I'm holding in my awareness that I would eventually like to incorporate as part of this project. I'd also like to have a children's storybook that accompanies the stories. Each of the workbooks follows characters, and those character stories develop as they become, excuse me, integral part in bringing out some of the experiences. And so specifically for the children, having a workbook, I think would be very visually supportive to the children. I'd also like to research the possibility of having the support material, which would be in the form of what would look like a online course, if you will, be certified so that professionals who are using the information could potentially receive CEU credits. And so that's just another way to bring in individuals to rally around it, recognizing that professionally there's value for them and for the individuals in which they're supporting. And likewise for foster parents, there's typically a requirement for foster parents to have a minimum number of hours before they renew. And if I can have the training also possibly certified where it can count towards their learning hours, that would also be a plus as well. I do intend to have focus groups. And those focus groups will vary. I have not, solidified what that might look like. But for full awareness, my family did become a foster family during the COVID time period. So I am connected to the foster community in my area. So there is an opportunity. I don't think that I would want to deliver the training, but I'm also connected with numerous social workers and therapists in my area where I know they would be willing to lead the focus group so that I can just be more on the observing side and taking the input and the feedback. I do also have individuals who run group homes. So this also would be a space where the children would, again, have direct access to, in this setting here, a supportive adult who can guide them through the material. And again, it can be done as an individual experience or in a group setting. And lastly, updates and revisions. And so that's just a high level overview. And again, it just acknowledging that there is a tremendous amount of work to be done, but the activities, really do vary. And in creating the activity book, again, just wanted to use the imagination that would come with, again, just working in a workbook for kids. I think what I saw was, myself sitting at a restaurant as a little kid, and you get those little menu sheets, and there's the different little, word finders, or, the word search or the maze. So again, just something that really kind of brings to life that experience of I'm using words that I'm also learning how to apply concepts with, but also in an engaging way. Some of the activities intentionally draw attention to supporting what would look like somatic therapy and bringing awareness to the body. And so again, the questions and the reflective responses are intended to not just have individuals name what their thoughts are, but really take that inward reflection and see what else is present to include sensations and meaning that gets made. Also noticing the emotions that might be connected with it. And so something, as simple as even just having a child identify the strategy that they used in order to complete one of the activities, and having them to, to kind of name the sensations that, came with the excitement or, the urge of, perhaps wanting to get done, just whatever it might be, just really just trying to, again, just bring some awareness to the different parts. And giving a sense of, the vast ways in which parts can present themselves. So I'm going to pause because I think, again, you all have been very gracious in giving me feedback and allow for any additional comments.
Natasha, thank you. And I appreciate the fact that you mentioned a couple times this is aspirational, and you want to try to ensure that you plan it in ways that you can start realizing some of these elements. It's ambitious as well, and it's very thoughtful in terms of how you set it up. And clearly, you have a community with which you can work, which is always, to me, the first question. What is your entry point? And it seems like you have an entry point. So we'll open it up for questions or comments, and you may want to unshare your screen so you can see your colleagues.
Latasha, it's me and Essie. Well, I gave you feedback, Latasha. I love your project from the beginning when I read it, and just hearing the looking ahead, that was amazing. The looking ahead, the expansion of what you can do, and like I said before, I feel that I sent you like a list of possible places. I feel that they could be publishable once you have everything, like you said, graphic design, all of that. That these workbooks could be publishable, could be of interest to foster care and social services and other organizations that work with children. And I see a lot of possibilities. So thank you so much for sharing with us. Oh, and Latasha also copyright. Like you were so generous, you just sent us the whole workbook. I'm like, oh my God, Latasha.
Yeah, I think all of us are treating these documents with great confidence. You may want to just, in a world in which we live, we want to make sure we protect our, intellectual property. It's only fair.
Yeah.
Latasha and everyone else, I really want to encourage you to pilot some of your products that you develop out of this as well, because you can learn a lot from them. Like you said, the focus groups, the update and revision. I think this is a very important element of producing some materials, because often we come in thinking we know the answer, but there's sometimes things we miss along the way, and engaging people in trying them out and being really in a good listening mode would be very helpful. Anna?
Yeah, Natasha, I also gave you a little bit of feedback, more to come. But I just wanted to say, I think it's such an important part of the work because our foster kids have gone through so much already. And so being able to help not only the kids, but the foster parents, sometimes even the bio parents, if they have visitation or whatever, and therapists and everything is such an important mission, so needed. And I love the creativity that you're putting into. I love what you say when you go to the restaurants when you were a little kid and you had those crosswords and everything. I've seen how cleverly you have been incorporating the 6 Fs and guiding a child, let's say, through all that process. So I'm thinking, what a gift for these kids that have started life kind of like with so many burdens already. And for you to give them through this, the benefit of IFS and discovering parts. And for whatever reason, I have a part that wants to tell you the Thai project came to my mind and the idea that he has of putting it also in video games. And something that Ty mentioned about kind of like giving a scenario, and this is what happens when one part of the child answered, and then making it open-ended, and what happens if there's other scenarios. I love that idea, Ty, and I'm seeing it kind of linked to your project, Natasha. I think there's so many ways in which you can really reach the foster youth and the foster parents too. I think, oof, I've been a therapist for young kids and I've dealt with a lot of foster kids and foster parents. And I think foster parents need so much this self-leadership part that I think it will be a wonderful gift as well. So I think you have something very precious. And I also, like Anesi said, I'm so impressed by all the points that you have to develop. I think you really, really have a clear vision. And I wish you find the support, and the link that I gave you with Kristen hopefully is going to be a good link as well. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Mana?
Yeah, Latasha, it's beautiful. I just love the way you've poured so much of your creativity into building this curriculum. And it's so nice to see how your therapist part is able to bring to life these activities around the 6 Fs. I really appreciated that when I read through it. I also really like the connection between your work and Anna's work around attachment. I think when I first learned about attachment, I had such a deficit lens, like, oh, I have this, broken attachment, but it wasn't until somebody directed me to some attachment workbook on how to do exercises towards, healing those wounds. I think that's such a powerful thing for youth to be introduced to, that, I think of how they view themselves as through a deficit lens. I don't have a family. I'm not normal. I am broken. My family is broken. And so there's just all these opportunities to redirect to, everything you need is right inside of you. And I think you do that really beautifully in this curriculum. What are your, I have a curiosity about, you've just laid out such a large, vast vision, which is amazing. what are your priorities for your next steps?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I paused for a moment. Again, I think the feedback and the affirming comments again kind of assured me that I was on a good path. And so as I re-engage, I do plan to start to craft out, to build out that fourth book, which again would be for the biological parents. And then again, just more editing. There are a lot of placeholders, as you may have saw as you started to read through the book, in terms of like some of those graphics that need to go inside. And I think once that is complete, then I'll start partnering with local therapists, social workers in my area to, to take a look at it and to, see what it would be like for them to use it in their clinical settings, and to get that feedback. And again, just more updates and revisions. So I think that is my short-term goal, is to complete the fourth workbook for parents, and then to start having other individuals lay eyes on it for the purpose of actually using it and then giving more feedback.
Thank you. I think Aman would like to share some thoughts.
Thank you for sharing, Latasha. I worked in a community center for foster kids for some years, and one of the things that I encountered a lot was that a lot of the youth that I worked with not only like bounced around a lot, like had to move around, so they would often lose connection to services and their communities in their area, but they also developed an aversion to like one-on-one therapy. And so they would get a lot of like the healing connections with each other in these community spaces. And I definitely, like, as you were describing what you were talking about, found like just like an excitement about programming for community centers that have foster youth or homeless youth or any youth who are like untethered or not housed at the moment, or not with their family at the moment. I think that that is a huge challenge with community centers who serve these populations, is to find programming that's backed by like behavioral science and like emotional stability, and like has that sort of like perspective along with that like lived experience, right, that you bring and that your communities will bring. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you for sharing that. It's great to imagine a world where there's an alternative for youth who don't or are traumatized by like one-on-one therapy, to have access to like the healing that they deserve.
Thank you so much, Aman, for sharing that. And I think part of what's also fueling this project for me is I know what therapy can do, right? And therapy looks so different, not just the traditional talk therapy. It could be a variety of ways in which people heal. And what's been very heartbreaking for me is to see how under-supported youth in care are. It's typically a rundown of time rather than giving them the true therapeutic support that they're in need of and that they're deserving of. And so in writing these books, the workbooks, I think that was also the passion behind it, is if it is going to be a standalone, if they have to do the work, can I give it to them in a way where they can get some of what they deserve, and to keep that hope present. So thank you for naming that, because that is also very important to me, because I was very aware of how underserviced youth are. And then I also recognize that because youth in care are often mandated to be in therapy, it can feel like an extension of the juvenile system, if you will. And so again, it's not always the therapeutic care and support that we, may desire for them. And so again, I appreciate you naming that and how this could be supportive in those environments.
Thank you. I think we have a time for one more comment. Well, I think Ty has his hands up.
Yes. So Latasha, I appreciate you going after or working with that community, because that is often a forgotten community, right? Obviously, being in foster care. I wasn't in foster care, but my pops passed before I was born, and my mom died when I was 15. I could have been in foster care, and there was times where when I was 5 to 9, I was with my grandfather. In between that age, my sister was born, and she actually was in foster care for like the first 3 years of her life, to the point where she didn't know who her mom was actually, because that was the times when you identify your mom. And so, as you're mentioning your books, my Well Just Academy program is also something that can go parallel with the things you're doing, as well as the children's books that I'm creating. Because eventually I want those children's books to become cartoons, right? That is my foot in the door. That's my pilot. A children's book will eventually become a cartoon. Because when I was 15 and I was told to go to therapy, I did not want to go to therapy because I didn't want no one to feel sorry for me. I didn't want nobody to pity me. I don't want anybody telling me something's wrong with me, right? And and for me, and I looking back now, I had those protective parts, but looking at the outside world trying to help me, how do you get past that barrier? You know what I mean? And so me being a person who knows, and the things that I'm creating, and I'm creating from a place of being 15 again, or being 9 again, right? Connecting to those parts, the things that you're working on, as you're working on them, I want you to keep me posted, because I'm going to keep you posted on what I'm doing. We have a lot of overlap, and some of the things that I have, some of the resources, the illustrators and things to make the characters very robust and to make them very lively is something that my goal is to be an example. Put these arts of work out so that people can create similar things, right? Not to be the only one, because remember, I'm dribbling the ball down the court so I can pass the ball, right? And you're one of the people I'm going to pass the ball to as you're creating your stuff. So thank you. Keep going with that. Keep on going. Let me know what's going on with you, because I am, keeping my eye on your project.
Thank you. I got your number locked in.
Thank you, and I hope you'll all dribble and pass the ball. There are many balls. This is a very different game, right? There's multiple nets and multiple balls. There's one court. So I hope that you folks can continue to do that, because there are clearly many, not lines of intersections, planes of intersection, and it's coming through. And what's also obvious to me, as I heard 7 of you present today, is that for some this is gonna take over your work, take over your life. For some, this is something adjunct you do to your career or your life, and this is where you're gonna make decisions. Give it priority or not, keep it small, make it big. These are all things that belong to you. It's about your own style, your own need, your own place in the world. And what we can do on this end and with this community is to provide you the support you need, right? I mean, when the foundation put this group together, it wasn't just a one-off. It was, as long as the foundation is alive, we want to be a resource for you, and we hope that you'll be a resource for each other. So thank you. This was certainly very inspiring, very heartwarming. It's very fulfilling, and we can imagine, right? When all these 7 projects, and there are many more projects, take off and have traction and start, having tentacles and cultivate new interest and generate greater connections, a lot's going to happen, right? And these are very valuable contributions. So kudos to every one of you, because I can only imagine the time and thoughtfulness that went behind all of it. So thank you again. And just a few words of housekeeping. I just want to remind you that we would like very much to have a one-page thing from each of you about your projects, whether you're presenting or not. Doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's like a high-level executive summary of what you're doing. I think Mona shared something that might be a nice template. We can certainly develop a template for you if you need it, but we do not want to subscribe or prescribe, rather, a format for you. We just want it to be a one page that describes what you intend to do, why, for whom, and what the anticipated outcomes are. And you can borrow that from the framework we shared with you early on. So we'll remind you of that. Want to also remind you that Julia sent a note, can't remember, a couple days ago, telling you that the registration for the conference is open. But for those of you who are attending, please wait for her cue, because she might register you, or she might come back and tell you how to register, because the foundation is covering your registration. And we're working with the Institute on a discounted registration setup. So please wait for that to happen. And if you haven't started to make your own accommodation plans for those of you attending, please start to do so. We hope some of you already have. Just an invitation here, an open invitation to something that the foundation is producing. We're putting together a very short video kind of celebrating the 10th anniversary. And our Senior Associate for Development and Communication would like to have a short conversation with maybe 3 of you. So I want to invite all of you to consider, and just send me a private email if you'd be interested to kind of talk about your experience as a fellow. I think it's a program we'd like to highlight in that video if we can. And the last invitation is that I'm starting to think, obviously I've been thinking about this for a long time, but I'm starting to think more explicitly and practically about launching the next cohort. And we decided not to do it till a year from now, so we can benefit from the experience we've had with you and that you've had. And so we can invite a couple of you, if you're interested, to join us in designing the next program, learning from the positives and the less positive experiences that have taken place during that year and a half or what have you. It's been a year and a half for us because it included recruitment and review and selection and prep and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to leave you with these open invitations, and you can communicate with me directly by email. And I just want to remind us that in September, when we meet, the plan currently stands that, and this is in response to the survey findings or poll results, we have a commitment to have Frank Rogers with us. A number of you have engaged with Frank Rogers before in his work at the Claremont Theological School. He will talk to us about compassionate activism, and we have time to hear presentations from half a dozen of you. So it might be a little bit more condensed than today. Julia will reach out to you and find out who among you will be interested to present. And for all the others, if you decide to put a video together about your presentation, we can share it. And if we, for some reason, we have 12 of you presenting, we'll come up with a way, maybe 2 separate communities to present at the same time, to ensure that everybody gets the benefit from hearing from colleagues. I'm gonna stop here. We have 8 minutes. We can adjourn right now, or we can open it up for comments, thoughts, whatever's coming up for you as you hear me sharing these housekeeping remarks.
Yeah, I'm curious. What's the plan for the fellows at the conference? Are we presenting?
Because we did not know what is going to take place, and because the Institute has is launching a new program. This is the first time this team of managers is running the conference. It's structured a little differently from the other conferences I've been at, and I've been to everyone since 2011. The last 2 were virtual. So what we're doing, we're hosting a reception actually on Friday evening. And you're all invited, those attending are invited to be there. I will publicly acknowledge you in the audience during lunch on Saturday when I make my brief remarks. And I'm thinking about how the 15 of you and I could spend time together at the conference. So I'm looking to see where that might fit, and I'll communicate with you about that as we get closer. It might be that we might grab dinner together if people have no plans, or we can just have a couple tables together at one of the lunches. That sort of, so there's no formal panel, which is what I had anticipated would happen. But here's the interesting thing in my view. This would be great for next year's conference to see not only what happened for you during the experience, because more importantly than the experience itself is what's happened as a result of the experience a year out with all the great projects that you're planning to implement. Closing comments from anybody?
I was just going to say I really appreciated this session, and I really loved hearing what everyone's up to. And I think more than just sort of being able to have like a little overview or get an email of what people are doing, I really liked seeing people actually talk about their work, getting sort of the felt sense and the passion behind what people are up to is really why I joined this cohort in this program. And so today felt really for me like almost like an exceptional day of like feeling very excited, and also just seeing how much overlap there really is actually. And I'll present next month too, but I'm feeling like, oh wow, like maybe everyone can think of their work as somehow fitting into whatever this is. It's exciting. So just feeling very grateful and appreciative of everyone today.
Thank you, Megan, and I echo that sentiment.
Yeah, when Megan spoke and what she said, it was so heartfelt. It kind of made me a little teary because I feel like, yeah, very much like Megan, I came to here, you know, to be in a community and to collaborate and to be with each other and network. And I feel like this today is like, wow, like it's just so impressive and so beautiful, what everyone is doing. And just like Megan said, I could work with so-and-so, and I could, you know, like we could work with each other, we could support each other. And I feel like it's the community that I hoped for. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it just occurred to me that I had some benefit that the rest of you didn't, and that is I have been impressed with each of you since the very beginning, because I looked at your application, I listened to your videos, I got to have conversations with each of you 3 times over the span of the year. So I feel I come with that sentiment already with me, and now you're starting to share that as well with each other. Yeah.
I also just wanted to say thank you to Fik for hanging there with us. I know this is a lot of work and requires a lot of your commitment. And I'm so glad to see that you guys are thinking about continuing, because I think this is just the beginning of something amazing. So looking forward to what's to come.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, it's not something, it's you guys, right? So there's nothing amazing. You are the people who make anything worthwhile. So, you are amazing in some ways. Yeah.
I have a
Anyways,
joking, kind of like a joke, but it's not a joke question for you, Tufik.
sure.
Can you blame
Playfulness
stream?
is a quality of self, right? So go ahead.
It's a curiosity. I'll name it as that. Can you pull any strings with a lottery for level 2? Because I'm in it. Is anyone else? I'm also curious if anyone else is in the lottery for level 2. Are you, Ricardo? Can we give you like a wink or something?
So say it again. So you're saying you are in the lottery for level 2.
I'm trying to get into the level 2. Yeah, I'm wondering like who we need to talk to.
Yeah. Well, you know, in that space, I'm not a good influencer. In fact, I have no influence whatsoever.
Got it.
It's
Okay, so
unfortunate because the
it's really
institute,
actually luck.
yeah, the institute is very, protective of the lottery system and keeping things, randomized. The reason some of you were able to do level 2 as part of this experience is because it was set up like that from the beginning. Those who came with level 1 were automatically assigned seats in level 2. But we're working on ways for the institute to acknowledge, people with great potential and promise from the get-go. So, while I cannot talk about an individual in particular, I'm talking to them about certain groups where we think, people could benefit, because the whole idea is to create movement, like some of you have shared already, and that would certainly contribute to that.
So Tofik, in terms of what you're sharing, what Megan is asking, maybe for the next level that should be embedded within it. You know what I mean? Like if level 1ers are finishing.
Yeah.
Level 1ers.
You know the secret. I'm absolutely with you on the philosophy.
Okay.
The secret would be funding, right? I
mean,
mean,
okay, got it.
Right? Because the institute, made some adaptation. The issue for us was to raise enough support to make this worthwhile for the institute, for you, because remember, it's the first activity of its kind, right? And sometimes people are willing, but they're not necessarily fully in it, from a business model point of view. So, and we wanted to ensure that we covered for 12 additional, because the institute really needed to have 36 people in a given cohort, right? So the point I'm making simply is, as a philosophy, it makes a lot of sense. We guarantee 2 levels, and it might be something we'll do in the next cohort. In fact, what we're trying to do is to have a completely different IFS experience integrated with leadership, which was the intention from the beginning. So it's not going to be the usual level 1 and the usual level 2. It's something designed for community-facing activists and for, community leaders. That's what we're going to try to do for the next cohort. So develop a whole new IFS, certified, if you wish, program, rather than the usual level 1 and level 2. And that's what we're in discussion with the Institute about. And that was informed by your experience and what some of you told us. Yeah. Well, we're past the bottom of the hour by 1 minute. I want to say thank you again from the bottom of our heart, mine and Julia and the foundation. And we'll be in close contact with you as we plan the last session together, the last formal session together of this phase. And we'll be discussing with you how we follow up together as a community. Thank you, everyone. Best wishes as always.
Thank you.
Take good care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next month.
See you next month. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Night. Bye-bye.